Chapter 1297. This atmosphere, why does it feel so wrong? Chu Yu, you're here. A girl who looked to be in her teens suddenly took a few steps forward and walked in front of Chu Luiwei with a smile. She was wearing a bright yellow dress and a buyao of the same color on her head. She had an oval face and delicate facial features. She was very beautiful. However, there was a hint of shrewdness in her eyes, which let people know that she was not as unsophisticated as she seemed on the surface. Chu Luiwei's eyebrows twitched. My name is Liao Shuiqing. I came to the academy 3 months earlier than you. You can just call me Qingqing. The girl in front of him did not seem to be embarrassed by Chu Luiwei's unfamiliar gaze. Instead, she introduced herself very generously and even had a hint of intimacy. Luo Shishir, who was standing beside Chu Luiwei, saw this and felt a faint sense of annoyance in her heart. However, she did not show this emotion on her face. As a noble girl from a first-rate family, she still had this kind of cultivation. I heard that you're also planning to go to the northern border of the Great Desolate Land this time? Have you formed a team yet? Can I be in the same group as you? As Liao Shuiqing spoke, she moved closer to Chu Luiwei. A strong and excessive fragrance of cosmetics rushed to the tip of Chu Luiwei's nose, almost choking him. Recently, she had either been collecting medicine in the Medicine Wind Valley or refining pills in the Jiuheng Mountain. She had been immersed in a faint bitter medicinal fragrance all day long. Suddenly changing this, she felt very uncomfortable. She restrained her expression and took half a step back without batting an eyelid. She smiled faintly. I appreciate senior sister Liao's kindness, but I've already chosen the people in the same group. As she spoke, she deliberately emphasized. It's the 3 people who came with me. I thought it was very obvious, but I didn't expect senior sister Liao to not notice. The smile on Liao Shuiqing's face suddenly disappeared. She crossed her arms in front of her and shrugged. Then, she quickly glanced behind Chu Luiwei. Is that so? I thought you were going to team up with Senior Rong Xiu. What's wrong? Didn't he come with you today? It turned out that they were here for this. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows slightly. She didn't need to look up to know how many pairs of eyes were staring at her. Of course, they were all waiting for her answer. Senior brother Rong Xiu has no intention of participating in this mission. Chu Luiwei replied slowly. Many people instantly looked disappointed. After a moment of silence, some whispers could be heard. As expected, I told you he wouldn't come, yes. Senior brother Rong Xiu has already left the academy for several years. How could he still be with us? Even if he is interested in that thing with his identity as the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, he can still go. Sigh, what a pity. I originally thought that even if we can't team up, we can still go together. Now it seems that there is no chance. Some people quietly dispersed. Many people retracted their gazes. Obviously, without Rong Xiu's support, Chu Luiwei wasn't very valuable in their eyes. Even Liao Shuiqing couldn't hide her disappointment. However, she still maintained a decent expression on her face. She smiled at Chu Luiwei and said as if she was wronged and acting coquettishly. It seems that I won't have a chance to spar with you this time. Next time, how about it? Oh right, I forgot to mention that I am also a celestial physician. I just broke through to the 9th grade half a year ago. I heard that junior brother Chu Yu is only 16 years old? Compared to junior brother Chu Yu, you are really lacking. If it was a teenager who met such a passionate and cheerful beautiful girl, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. She asked you out, but the reason was fair and square. How could you have the nerve to refuse? Luo Shishir felt more and more disgusted with her. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning in her chest. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Chu Luiwei. Chu Yu, we should go over. Liao Shuiqing glanced at her. Chu Luiwei nodded and replied politely to Liao Shuiqing. Senior sister Liao, you flatter us. We still have something to do, so we'll take our leave first. After saying that, he nodded slightly and walked inside without waiting for Liao Shuiqing to say anything. Luo Shishir and the other 2 followed closely behind. After walking for a while, Zhuo Sheng couldn't help but ask. Shishir, why do you seem so angry? Did that Liao Shuiqing offend you? Luo Shirshi's ears immediately turned red. No, I just feel that. I feel that she seems to be targeting us. We all came together, but she still asked that. She clearly did it on purpose. Zhuosheng still felt that something was wrong. It's not the first time we've met such people. In the past, you couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Today was... Sigh, I can't say it either. Luo Shirshir hurriedly said. Even a clay figurine has a temper. I just feel that it's not good for her to be like this. You're thinking too much. Zhuosheng wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by Luo Yanming. I heard that the number of people in the team is not fixed. If there are suitable people, we can also pull them over. However, the prerequisite is that we have to pass today's test first. The elders are going to screen all the people who want to go to the northern border of the primeval world today. Only those who pass can go with the main group of the academy. Those who are eliminated can only stay in the academy. After being interrupted by Luo Yanming, Zhuosheng didn't ask any more questions. Luo Shirshir couldn't help but sneak a glance at Chu Luiwei before quickly retracting her gaze. Luo Yanming saw it clearly from the side and couldn't help but shake her head. It seems that fourth brother was right. Shirshir really has some feelings for Chu Yu, but Chu Yu seems to be indifferent. I don't know if he really doesn't know or if he's pretending not to know. Luo Yanming thought in her heart, when there's time, I'll have to probe them separately. Chu Luiwei walked at the front and took the lead in the qualification check. The elder in charge was an acquaintance, Elder Wensi. Elder Wensi wasn't surprised to see him. He raised his chin. Take out the black jade token. Chu Luiwei handed it over with both hands. Elder Wensi touched his green jade token with it. Chu Luiwei saw a few lines of words appear on his black jade token. It seemed to be related to her current level of strength. Hiss! Elder Wensi sucked in a breath of cold air, then suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Luiwei suspiciously. When did this kid break through to this realm? I didn't hear any news at all. Those lines of words quickly disappeared. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but ask, Elder Wensi, am I considered qualified? Elder Wensi wanted to knock her head with the token. Asking the obvious. If she didn't even pass this, then a large number of people in the academy would be stuck. Chu Luiwei smiled. Thank you, Elder Wensi. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1298. At this moment, there was a small commotion in the crowd. Chu Luiwei looked up and saw a familiar face. Jiang Jiwan. She actually came back at this time. Chu Luiwei narrowed his eyes. Xing, you're finally back. Liang Xiaoxiao was chatting happily with a few people. When she saw Jiang Jiwan come back, a trace of surprise flashed across her eyes, and then she quickly greeted her with a smile. We thought you weren't coming. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips and smiled. I've been at home for a while. If I didn't come back, I would have been left behind in my studies. Liang Xiaoxiao smiled and said, You came back at the right time. Have you seen the mission list? Today is the day to select the candidates to go to the northern region of the untainted land. If you came back 2 days later, you wouldn't be able to make it. Jiang Jiwan nodded. I heard about it. It seems that we're going in a team? I remember that when the mission list was released last time, we acted together. I didn't expect that we would have to go so far this time. The smile on Liang Xiaoxiao's face suddenly became a little awkward. Ziwan, you didn't say that you were coming back. I've already formed a team with others. It's not appropriate to kick someone out at the last minute. Only then did Jiang Ziwan realize something, and her face stiffened. But don't worry, even if we're not in the same team, we can still go together. Liang Xiaoxiao glanced at her cautiously. You're not angry with me, are you? Jiang Jiwan suppressed the anger in her heart and forced a smile. Why would I be? I know that I came back suddenly, and you've already formed a team. There's nothing I can do. It's okay, I'll find someone else. With that, she looked around and then walked in a certain direction. There were still many people around, so Jiang Jiwan had to maintain her expression. But in her heart, she had already developed disgust and resentment towards Liang Xiaoxiao. On the surface, Liang Xiaoxiao looked enthusiastic, but her words and actions revealed her rejection. Obviously, Liang Xiaoxiao had already decided to alienate her. Just because she lost to Lin Qifei and made a slip of the tongue? No matter what the reason was, she had seen through it. A few years of friendship was not worth mentioning at all. Liang Xiaoxiao looked at her back and crossed her arms. A smile appeared on her delicate and seductive face. Xiaoxiao, the number of people in each team is not fixed. Even if there is one more person, it doesn't matter. Why are you? A woman at the side couldn't help but come over and whisper. Liang Xiaoxiao raised her eyebrows and looked at her. What about you and her? As long as you're willing, we can do anything. No, forget it. The woman shrunk her neck and hurriedly refused. Another young man chuckled and said, actually, Xiaoxiao is doing this for the good of all of us. Everything else is actually quite good, but she seems to be out of it recently. What if something happens to her when she's in a trance? We can't afford it. In fact, these words were a little pompous. Jiang Jiwan's condition was bad before she left the academy. For her to bring it up now, it was obvious that she was just looking for an excuse. In fact, because of the previous incident, Jiang Jiwan's image in the academy had plummeted. Many people felt that she was two-faced and were unwilling to be with her. Furthermore, based on her behavior, she might have offended Rong Xiu long ago. No one wanted to take the risk of standing on the opposite side of Rong Xiu. Jiang Jiwan might be outstanding, but she wasn't the only girl like her in the academy. There were plenty of noble ladies with good backgrounds, good looks, and good talent in the academy. There was no need to keep chasing after her. Liang Xiaoxiao tucked her fringe behind her ear and turned around. Everyone has their own destiny. Let's go about our own business first. Jiang Jiwan looked for a few more people, but without exception, they were all rejected with various reasons. The smile on her face became harder and harder, and the anger in her heart burned more and more fiercely. How long has it been? She had only left the academy for a short period of time, and such a huge change had happened. These people used to chase after her, but now they all avoided her like a poisonous scorpion. Even those who were once the closest to her had now abandoned her without any hesitation. After being rejected again, Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Her face burned as if she had been slapped a few times. She had never been ostracized like this in Lingxiao College. This situation was worse than she had expected. She wanted to find a hole to hide in right now. I really didn't expect that Jiang Jiwan would have such a day. Zhuosheng pursed his lips. Thinking back to when she first came, she was quite popular in the academy. Isn't it because she did something wrong? Luo Yanming said lightly. Chu Luiwei looked for a while, then retracted his gaze. Jiang Jiwan was too impatient. Such a person was really nothing to worry about. Thousand Wine Mountain. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Ouyang stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the spring with furrowed brows. What the hell is going on? After a while, Elder Ouyang spoke in a low voice. It has been so long, but the spring still hasn't recovered. Actually, half a month ago, they had already restored everything in Thousand Wine Mountain to normal. But because they all came at night, they only found out that there was something wrong with the spring during the day. It was no longer gushing with spring water. In the past, spring water would gush out continuously during the day and flow down. But now it had stopped. They came every day to look, but the results were the same every day. Elder Bo Yen walked down the mountain. Call Chuyu over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1299. When she saw Elder Ouyang heading straight for her, Chu Luiwei had a bad premonition. Sure enough, after they met, Elder Ouyang only said a few words concisely. Chuyu, follow me. Everyone's attention was attracted by this sudden scene. Many people were curious and surprised. Elder Ouyang was a weapon refiner and rarely came out. Why did he suddenly look for Chuyu? Chu Luiwei paused. May I know why Elder Ouyang is looking for me? Elder Ouyang stared at her with an unfathomable gaze, as if he was considering whether her blank expression was real or fake. You'll know later. With that, Elder Ouyang turned and left. Chu Luiwei was about to follow when Luo Shishir couldn't help but tug at her. Chuyu, this she felt that something was amiss. Chu Luiwei shook her head. Don't worry. I'll be back soon. With that, she quickly followed Elder Ouyang's footsteps and left together. Only the onlookers were left looking at each other. Chu Luiwei followed Elder Ouyang to the foot of Thousand Wine Mountain. Elder Bo Yen was standing with his hands behind his back. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. As Thousand Wine Mountain had been closed recently, there were basically no people who came here. At this moment, there were only Chu Luiwei and the other two here. Chu Yu. Elder Bo Yen saw him and spoke first. Chu Luiwei immediately went forward. Elder Bo Yen, why are you looking for me? Elder Bo Yen looked at her with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to look into her heart. What did you promise before? Chu Luiwei was confused, as if she didn't understand what was going on. Elder Bo Yen, what are you talking about? Elder Bo Yen snorted coldly. Don't say that the situation at Thousand Wine Mountain has nothing to do with you. This time, Chu Luiwei really didn't know what Elder Bo Yen was referring to. She vaguely guessed that it might have something to do with Dumpling, but she didn't know the specifics. Seeing that Chu Luiwei's expression did not seem to be fake, Elder Bo Yan's heart began to beat faster. Could it really have nothing to do with this brat? However, it was only after Chu Yu caused a ruckus at Thousand Wine Mountain that the spring became like this. This student is slow-witted, please enlighten me, Elder Bo Yen. Chu Luiwei asked cautiously. Elder Bo Yen stared at her and did not speak for a long while. The spring was of great importance. Now that it had suddenly become like this, it could not be easily leaked. How could he tell Chu Yu directly? Thus, the two sides entered a stalemate. Elder Ouyang couldn't stand it anymore and said, Chu Yu, when you were refining the artifact spirit that day, didn't you notice anything unusual? Maybe it wasn't Chu Yu's problem? Chu Luiwei shook his head. At that time, all of the students' attention was focused on that and had no time to care about anything else. That was true. Elder Ouyang and Elder Ouyang looked at each other, feeling a little worried. Bo Yen, Ouyang, you're looking for me? At this moment, a low and powerful laughter broke the silence. It was Shang Yusen. The two of them were smiling and seemed to be in a good mood. However, when he saw the three of them, he realized that something was amiss. Shang Yusen retracted the smile on his face and asked seriously, What's wrong? Ouyang, bring him up. Elder Bo Yen said. Elder Ouyang nodded and then brought the confused Shang Yusen into Thousand Wine Mountain again. After the two of them left, only Elder Bo Yen and Chu Luiwei were left staring at each other. Chu Yu, if you tell us the truth now, we can reduce your punishment. Elder Bo Yen said with a heavy heart. Chu Luiwei was now even more certain that there was a problem with the spring in Thousand Wine Mountain, but Dumpling was not exposed. Otherwise, Elder Bo Yen wouldn't have to test her so many times. Thus, she also refused to let go of the matter. This student really doesn't understand. Please, give me some hints? Elder Bo Yen was so angry that his heart choked. He could tell that Chu Yu didn't fall for his tricks at all. Although this kid was only 16 or 17 years old and looked harmless to humans and animals, he was actually very mature and experienced, making him difficult to fathom. After all, he was brought out by Rong Xiu and was as troublesome as him. Elder Bo Yan's expression became dangerous. Only the three of you were present at Thousand Wine Mountain that day. This matter must have something to do with one of you. Which of the three of you do you think it is? Chu Luiwei lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. This student doesn't even know what happened, so how can I admit it? Are you sure it's me? Of course. Elder Bo Yan's expression couldn't be clearer. Ouyang and Shang Yusen knew how important the spring was and definitely wouldn't do anything. The only possibility, isn't it Chu Yu? Everything will be clear when they come down. Chu Luiwei glanced at the mountain. She couldn't see anything through the barrier, but she could vaguely feel that Dumpling's condition wasn't bad. After a human and a magical beast formed a contract, there would be a subtle connection between them. After Dumpling stayed here, she seemed to have entered a stable and calm state. This was also one of the reasons why she felt slightly more at ease. Dumpling had already stayed inside for more than the month that the legendary three-eyed eagle said, and she didn't know when she would come out. Bo Yen. After a while, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen returned. Elder Bo Yen looked over and saw that Elder Ouyang's expression was a little strange. He frowned. What's wrong? What did you find out? Elder Ouyang glanced at Chu Luiyue. Elder Bo Yen said in a deep voice. Chu Yu, are you still not going to admit it? Before Chu Luiyue could say anything, she heard Elder Ouyang hurriedly say from the side. Chu Yu isn't to blame for this. What? A trace of shock flashed across Elder Bo Yan's face. Afraid that he would misunderstand, Elder Ouyang hurriedly explained. All right. Elder Bo Yen was stunned for a moment, then he immediately understood what he meant. You'll know when you go up. In front of Chu Luiyue, Elder Ouyang couldn't be too direct. How could he explain this? An hour ago, when he and Bo Yen went up, the spring was still a pool of stagnant water. In the end, when he and Shang Yusen went over, they saw that the spring had already recovered. Hearing him say this, Elder Bo Yen didn't believe it and went up the mountain. After a while, he returned with an indescribable expression on his face. Shang Yusen couldn't help but laugh. Hey, it's clearly nothing, why are you so nervous? You called Chu Yu over before you even found out, look at how scared the child is. Ever since Chu Luiyue showed him the Scarlet Heaven Sword, Shang Yusen's attitude towards Chu Luiyue was extremely good. At this moment, he also stood up to speak up for him. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Ouyang looked at each other in confusion. Could it be? It really had nothing to do with him? Forget it, you can go back. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1300. That student will go back first. Chu Luiyue bowed respectfully and left. She did not look back as she left. Looking at her receding figure, the remaining 3 elders had different expressions on their faces. Bo Yen, it's not appropriate for you to do this. Shang Yusen touched his chin. What if this child is traumatized? Elder Bo Yen snorted. He's not that weak. But you shouldn't have come to such a conclusion when you're not sure. Shang Yusen's expression became more serious. Elder Bo Yen was startled, then shook his head. I'm in the wrong. Actually, you can't blame Bo Yen entirely. Yusen, you don't know, but during that period of time, there was no movement in the spring. Bo Yen and I observed for a long time before we decided to ask Chu Yu. Who knew that when you came today, it actually... Elder Ouyang frowned, he could not figure it out. Maybe it was because Chu Yu was refining the weapon soul, which affected it a little. But now that it's recovered, you don't have to worry too much. Although Shang Yusen had not been here for a long time, he believed that Ouyang was telling the truth. After thinking about it, they were still too concerned, even a little too much. Elder Bo Yen stroked his beard and sighed helplessly. If not for that kid always doing things, I wouldn't, Shang Yusen choked. He felt that it made sense. Since all the problems have been solved, there's no need to be so nervous. If you're still worried, just observe for a few more days. Elder Bo Yen nodded. Then let's wait until the day we go to the north. You're going too? Shang Yusen was surprised. You're not staying in the academy? When the dean was not around, Elder Bo Yen had always been in charge of the academy. Even if there was something, he would send the other elders out. This time, Elder Bo Yen actually wanted to lead someone personally. It was really surprising. This is a matter of great importance, and everyone is vying for supremacy. It's safer for me to go. Also, Elder Bo Yen frowned. This time, we might be able to find the dean's whereabouts. Chu Luiyue once again returned to the Green Darkness Square. Many people looked over curiously with different expressions. Chu Luiyue's expression was calm. He ignored all of them and walked straight back to Luo Shishir and the others. Only then did he realize that there was something wrong with their expressions. What's going on? Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Zhuosheng sighed heavily. I didn't get chosen. Luo Yenming said, and me. Chu Luiyue was very surprised. Where's Shishir? Luo Shishir pursed her lips. I've tried. However, she couldn't bring herself to be happy about this outcome. Their original plan was for the 4 of them to go together, but now it was definitely impossible. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. No wonder the atmosphere was so gloomy. Actually, it's not a big deal. Previously, I felt that I might not have made it. There are so many outstanding students in the academy, it's normal that I didn't make it. Zhuosheng was the first to get excited. He looked at Chu Luiyue and grinned. Chu Yu, you have to perform well this time. Do your best for your brother. I'm still waiting to bask in your glory when you come back. It was true that he was disappointed and regretful, but the outcome was already out, so it was useless to be sad. Although Zhuosheng was usually carefree, there was one advantage to this. He was big-hearted. After being sad, he still liked to eat and drink, and he wouldn't take it to heart. Such a person lived a more open and comfortable life. Luo Yanming sighed in his heart. He was actually still a little upset, but there were more important things that were worth his attention. Chu Yu, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Xianxia in the future. She rarely went out before, so there are many things that she doesn't know. If she causes you trouble? That's for sure. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile and said seriously. Xianxia is my friend, so I'll naturally protect her. Only then did Luo Yanming feel relieved. I'll go with you. At this moment, someone suddenly walked over from the side. Fourth brother? Luo Xianxia and the other two were surprised to see Luo Yanlin, especially Luo Xianxia. She took a few steps forward, grabbed his arm and asked, Fourth brother, are you going too? I've never heard him mention it before. Luo Yanlin laughed. I should be the one asking you this. You've only been here for a few months? You dare to take such a big risk. I've already discussed it with a few friends. Xianxia, you and Chu Yu can come with us. Luo Xianxia looked at Chu Luiyue inquisitively. Luo Yanlin made another bet in his heart. Thank you, senior brother Luo. Chu Luiyue smiled and cupped his hands. Luo Yanlin didn't want to talk to her anymore, but for the sake of his sister's face, he could only say, the academy is planning to set off tomorrow. You guys go back and prepare today. Yes. Chu Luiyue went straight back to Mount Johan. It wasn't until she entered the room and locked the doors and windows that she pressed one hand on her chest and let out a long breath. Fortunately, it was scary but not dangerous. If she had done anything wrong today, she probably wouldn't have been able to come back. You still know how to be afraid? Dugu Mabao's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Only then did she see that Dugu Mabao was already in the room. His strength was much higher than Chu Luiyue's. It was easy for him to hide his tracks and aura in front of her. Big baby, you scared me. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and calmed her wild heartbeat. Then, she froze and looked at the opposite side suspiciously. You know? Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. He only raised his hand and threw something over. Chu Luiyue caught it subconsciously. It was soft and wet to the touch. Chu Luiyue took a closer look, and the corner of her eyes twitched violently. Tuan, dumpling? This red palm-sized lump, if it wasn't dumpling, who else could it be? However, at this moment, it seemed to be sleeping. Its head was buried in one of its wings, and no matter how Dugu Mabao swung it around, it didn't show any signs of waking up. Its body was covered in water, and its fluffy feathers were stuck tightly to its body. It looked a little bald. Of course, there was a more direct word to describe it, ugly. Other than the occasional flash of silver lightning on its body, it looked a little unusual. Chu Luiyue didn't want to recognize this as her contracted magical beast. It soaked in the spring for too long and got drunk. Dugu Mabao said coldly. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Normal people won't get drunk after drinking the spring water, but magical beasts can't avoid it if they drink too much. Not to mention, it swallowed so much Tianlei's power. Dugu Mabao raised its eyes slightly and looked at Chu Luiyue. Do you know how much Tianlei's power accumulated in the spring for years has been consumed by it? If I didn't fish it out in time, who knows how long it would have slept there. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1301. Every time Dugu Mabao said a word, Chu Luiyue's heart would beat violently. In the end, her face turned slightly hot, and a rare trace of embarrassment appeared on her face. Dumpling, who was in her hands, was obviously cold all over, but at this moment, it seemed to have become a hot potato. If not for the fact that it was her contracted magical beast, Chu Luiwei would have really lost control and handed it over to Dugu Mabao for him to deal with. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. So, when Elder Bo Yen and the rest called me over today, it was also because of your help? Dugu Mabao snorted coldly. I've already warned you not to casually go to Thousand Wine Mountain. Did you turn a deaf ear to my words? Dabeo, I knew you were the best. However, Chu Luiwei couldn't hold herself back as she rushed forward and hugged him. It's all thanks to you today. Otherwise, I would have been finished. Dugu Mabao's voice came out from Chu Luiwei's shoulder with difficulty. It was muffled, but it was extremely dangerous. If you don't let go of me, I'll let you know what it means to be finished. Chu Luiwei hurriedly let go of him. Looking closely, Dugu Mabao's hair was already messed up like a chicken's nest. Coupled with his cold and angry little face, it was simply perfect. Chu Luiwei coughed and carefully stretched out her hands to help him comb his hair. Cough, look at your hair, it's messy. Dugu Mabao stared at her, a demonic light flashing in his purple eyes. Chu Luiwei tactfully retracted her hand and explained embarrassedly. It's all my fault for not being able to stop Dumpling at that time and allowing it to run in. After that, I was busy refining my weapon spirit and forgot about it for a moment. Later on, when I thought about it, Elder Bo Yen and the others had already sealed the mountain. If you really can't do it, Chu Luiwei seemed to have made up her mind. She placed Tuanzi on the table and pushed it in Dugu Mabao's direction as she reluctantly said, You can punish me however you want. Dumpling, who was still in a drunken stupor, moved uneasily, as if she knew that she had been ruthlessly abandoned. Chu Luiwei could no longer care about it. He clasped his hands together and smiled at Dugu Mabao. Dabao, don't be angry. Dugu Mabao turned his head away. Every time he saw her like this, his heart softened easily. Definitely not this time. After calming himself down, he said, Bo Yen is right about one thing. If you don't learn your lesson and continue to cause trouble without restraint, sooner or later you will cause trouble. Chu Luiwei looked pitiful. Then how do you want to punish me? Play chess with me or fight with me? When he said the last few words, the corner of Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. This might really not work, Dugu Mabao said coldly. For the next period of time, other than cultivating here in peace, you are not allowed to do anything else. I will set up a barrier here. You can only leave when you break it. Chu Luiwei was stunned. But the academy is leaving for the northern region of the primordial wilderness tomorrow. Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Just say that you can't go. There are so many elders and students in the academy. You're not the only one. Only then did Chu Luiwei realize that Dugu Mabao was serious. He really wanted to do this. But Chu Luiwei was a little conflicted. I've already made an appointment with them, and I've already passed the examination. If I give up just like that, she wasn't looking for any treasures or opportunities. She was purely worried. The real heavenly square cauldron was with her. The mastermind had deliberately planned such a big scheme. If she didn't go, however, Dugu Mabao's attitude was very firm. He waved his sleeve, and a huge silver Xian formation appeared in front of her. It quickly covered the entire room. Chu Luiwei wanted to persuade him again. Dabeo, if you want to punish me, I accept. But can you wait for me to come back? When you break this Xian formation, I naturally won't stop you. After Dugu Mabao finished speaking, his figure instantly disappeared from the room. Chu Luiwei. After sitting quietly in the room for a while, Chu Luiwei finally realized what had happened. She glanced at Dumpling, who was still sleeping on the table. At this moment, the water on its body had decreased a little. However, silver Tianlei could still be seen flashing across its body. Its pair of beautiful and cunning eyes were tightly shut. There were no signs of it waking up. Chu Luiwei rubbed her forehead. She felt that it was a little strange. She and Dugu Mabao had known each other for so long. Although he would often get angry because of her teasing, most of the time he wouldn't really get angry. Even if he was occasionally strict, it was only when he was teaching her cultivation. However, today, his reaction was really a little off. Was it really because the secret of the spring on Thousand Wine Mountain was too important that he was acting like this? However, if that was the case, he didn't even need to intervene. He could just let Elder Bo Yen and the rest deal with her. Now, Duga Mabao brought Dumpling out and erased those traces. However, he locked her up here. Chu Liwei thought for a while. She kept Dumpling and tried to walk out of the door. When she walked around the room, everything was normal. Then, she pushed the door open and walked forward cautiously. After taking 20 steps, Chu Liwei felt an invisible force blocking her path. She stopped and turned around to look at the room. She could vaguely see streaks of light flickering on the ground inside. This was the power of the Xian formation that he left behind. Chu Liwei tried a few times. She realized that she couldn't force her way through, so she gave up. She returned to the room and closed the door and windows. She started to focus on studying the Xian formation on the ground. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1302. The night passed in the blink of an eye. The morning sun shone in through the window. Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes and simply lay back. Phew, Debao is determined. This Xian formation was the most difficult one she had seen so far. It was even more difficult than the one left behind by Dugu Mabao. She hadn't even cracked that one yet, let alone this one. Chu Liwei rubbed her temples. After studying for an entire night, she didn't make any progress. She was almost certain that she wouldn't be able to get out today. Suddenly, a fluctuation came from her dantian. An idea popped up in Chu Liu's mind, and she summoned Tuanzi. The commotion just now had come from its body. Compared to yesterday, the number of Tianlei flashing on its body had decreased by a lot. It should have been absorbed by it bit by bit. However, its eyes were tightly shut and it still didn't show any signs of waking up. Chu Liwei picked it up and looked around carefully. Yesterday, Dumpling's entire body was wet, so she couldn't tell. Now, she realized that the color of Dumpling's feathers had become much darker than before. At a glance, it looked like a burning red flame, rich and intense. Chu Liwei remembered that it had only soaked in the spring for a short while before falling asleep for a long time. This time, she really didn't know when it would wake up. But when it wakes up this time, it should be when the power of its bloodline is completely activated, right? Thinking of this, Chu Liu's heart finally felt a lot more comforted. Chu Yu? Luo Shishir's voice came from outside. Chu Liu sighed, turned over, packed up, and walked outside. She immediately saw Luo Shishir, who was hovering outside the barrier. Chu Yu, we should set off. Many people have already gathered at Qingming Square. Luo Shishir waved at Chu Liu. Chu Liu took a few steps forward and stood at a safe distance. Shishir, please help me apply for leave. Just say that I'm not feeling well and I'm afraid I won't be able to go this time. Luo Shishir was shocked. Are you sick? Is it serious? I'll help you ask the elders to come over and take a look. Chu Liu hurriedly said, no need. It's an old problem. I've already taken some medicine. I'll be fine after resting for a while. However, in this state, he definitely could not go to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land. I'm really sorry. Luo Shishir saw that Chu Liu's complexion was indeed a little haggard, and her heart was a little worried. However, seeing her resolute attitude, she agreed. Then I'll help you talk to the elders. You take care of yourself. If he couldn't hold on any longer, he had to seek help from the elders. Chu Liu smiled gratefully. Thank you. Many people were shocked when they heard that Chu Liu had left the team because she was unwell. After all, such an opportunity was extremely rare. It would be a pity to give it up. Even Elder Bo Yen was a little surprised. He asked a few more questions about Chu Liu's situation. Elder Wan Zheng was worried, so he simply went to Jiuheng Mountain himself. Chu Liu had no choice but to explain again. She tried her best to convince Elder Wan Zheng that she was fine. Because Elder Wan Zheng was also going to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land this time, he left after confirming that Chu Liu was fine. Chu Liu finally calmed down. Although she was worried, the real Heavenly Square Cauldron was with her, which gave Chu Liu enough confidence. She began to focus on breaking the Xian formation. Lingxiao College's team this time was huge. There were a total of more than 30 elders and more than 300 students heading to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land together. After these people left, the entire college became much quieter. However, the cultivation atmosphere was stronger than before. Many students who failed this time secretly made up their minds to work hard to become stronger and strive to not miss such an opportunity in the future. Strength was always the most powerful voice. Everything seemed to have returned to how it was before. The days of studying Xian formations alone were very boring. If it was someone else, they would probably feel very uncomfortable after a day or two. However, this was not the case for Chu Luiyue. She had a good mentality. She knew that Dugu Mabao was thinking about her, so she stayed in the small space without any complaints and studied the Xian formation bit by bit. Occasionally, when she felt tired, she would choose to read the doctor's book that Elder Wan Zheng had left behind. 3 days later, as if afraid that she would be bored, Dugu Mabao threw a puppet over to accompany her. Yes, the beginner stage of the 9th level. When Chu Luiyue was finally able to fight evenly with this puppet, Dugu Mabao threw over a second one. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. She crossed her arms with one hand and supported her chin with the other. Her expression was serious. She looked at the complicated Xian formation on the ground and the 2 puppets that were ready to enter battle at any time. She fell into deep thought. Did she offend Daoist in the past? 5 days later, Chu Luiyue dispelled this question. Although she did not solve the Xian formation that Daoist trapped her in, she successfully solved the previous Xian formation in the process. Above level 9 Xian Master was Xian King Master. She had a faint premonition in her heart. Perhaps, before she broke through Doctor and Demigod, she would first reach a higher level above Xian Master. During this period of time, Dumpling did not make any movements and remained in a deep sleep. However, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the huge changes in its body. This change was silent, as calm as the spring rain moistening things. However, Chu Luiyue knew that one day, this would definitely shock countless people. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1303. Remember, LoveNet, in 1 second and provide you with interesting reading. The primordial north was a dangerous place in the divine ruins world. The extremely harsh environment and perilous checkpoints made it a barren land that countless cultivators trembled in fear at the mere mention of its name. However, because of the news that the Heavenly Square Cauldron was about to appear there, countless first-rate families and sects in the divine ruins world had sent people there. An intense battle was about to break out. Compared to the other families and sects, Lingxiao College did not have that many loyal people who could rush to the front to open up new territories. However, they had a huge advantage. Lingxiao College had the only teleportation formation in the Divine Ruins world that could directly lead to the primordial north. This teleportation array was personally built by the founder of the Spirit Firmament Academy 10,000 years ago, which was also the first dean. However, as time passed, the primordial north became more and more dangerous. Lingxiao College no longer sent people there, and even this teleportation formation was abandoned for a time. Unexpectedly, it came in handy this time. Inside the teleportation formation, there were bright lights floating. Compared to the other teleportation formations, it was much brighter and more spacious. Moreover, the surrounding spatial turbulence was almost impossible to feel. It was very stable inside. Some of the elders were at the front, while others were at the back to ensure the safety of the students. At first, everyone was still a little reserved and nervous. The whole place was very quiet. After a period of time, everyone gradually relaxed, and the atmosphere became much more lively. Occasionally, some people could be heard whispering. This teleportation formation is so stable. I've never seen such a powerful teleportation formation before. I heard that it was personally built by the first president. After 10,000 years, the elders of the college would regularly maintain it. Of course, it's extraordinary. How much manpower and material resources would this require? It's shocking just thinking about it. I heard that in the entire Divine Ruins world, This is the only teleportation formation that directly leads to the primordial north. If other people want to go, they have to change locations several times. In the end, they have to walk through the Red Valley Beach before they can truly enter the primordial north. I heard that place is the burial ground of many cultivators. If I can really see the heavenly square cauldron appear this time, I'm willing to suffer even more. That's one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. The 10 great saint artifacts are scattered all over the world. So far, only 5 of them have been clearly found. Moreover, they are all treasures that have been passed down for thousands of years by first-rate families and sections. As for the remaining 5, they were nowhere to be found. This is the only saint artifact that has appeared in this world in the past 1,000 years. Most importantly, it's ownerless. Sai, I wonder who will be the biggest winner in the end and obtain this heavenly square sacred cauldron? Xianxia. Luo Yanlin shouted twice before Luo Xianxia came back to her senses. Fourth brother, what's wrong? What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Luo Yanlin asked with a smile. Could it be that you are too nervous because you are thinking about the northern region of the wilderness? Luo Xianxia curled her lips and shook her head. No, Luo Yanlin raised his eyebrows. Are you thinking about Chuyu? Luo Xianxia's face quickly turned red. Fourth brother, what are you talking about? I didn't. Meeting Luo Yanlin's gaze that seemed to have seen through everything, Luo Xianxia guiltily swallowed the rest of her words. After a while, she said in a low voice, I just feel that it's a pity that he couldn't come. After all, this is a rare opportunity, and he also passed the examination. Everything was going smoothly, but he was unwell on the day of departure, so he regretfully gave up. It was truly a pity. Luo Yanlin sighed in his heart. This silly girl, she clearly liked him, but she didn't realize it. Don't worry, he is not an ordinary person. Even if he can't come this time, there will definitely be other opportunities in the future. Luo Yanlin said. Moreover, he has Rong Xiu behind him. When I have time, I will have to ask Rong Xiu about Chuyu's background. If he is good in all aspects, it is not impossible to consider. Luo Xianxia did not know that her fourth brother had already thought so far. She nodded and said seriously, I hope that I can quickly become stronger and get a good ranking on the Azure Sky roll as soon as possible. At the back of the crowd, Jiang Jiwan stood beside Elder Danqing in silence. She was somewhat out of place with the lively crowd in front of her. The more she listened, the more uncomfortable she felt. Those people seemed to have completely ignored her and did not care about her at all. Jiang Jiwan could still tolerate it for a day or two. However, after so much time had passed, their attitude towards her had become even worse. Especially Liang Xiaoxiao's group. She was clearly so far away from them, but she could still hear their giggles. Back then, many people wanted to curry favor with her and fawn over her in all sorts of ways. Now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, no one was even willing to talk to her properly. If not for the fact that she wanted to go to the northern region of the primeval desolate land, she would have quit long ago. Elder Danqing looked at her a few times. How could he not know the grievances and discomfort in her heart? After all, she was his disciple, so he still felt sorry for her. Ziyuan, have you thoroughly studied the Xian formation I showed you some time ago? Jiang Juan hurriedly said, I'm almost done. You can't be almost done. You have to study it thoroughly. Elder Danqing said with a heavy heart. You are a martial artist and a mystic master. You are very talented in both aspects. If you want to develop in a balanced way, you naturally have to put in more effort than others, especially the cultivation of a mystic master. You can't make do with it at all. Thank you for your teachings, master. Jiang Jiwan's face was a little hot. She had indeed neglected her cultivation during this period of time. Because she could not calm down, she had actually not looked at a Xian formation for about a month. If Elder Danqing were to test her on the spot, she would definitely fail. You have always been smart and sensible. I believe you understand some things even if I don't say them. Elder Danqing paused. I still have high hopes for you. You are already a level 9 mystic master now. If you can break through as soon as possible, you will surpass many people. In the academy or the entire Divine Ruins world, strength is the most important. Do you understand? Jiang Juan lowered her eyes slightly and nodded vigorously. Ziyuan understands. Also, you have been stuck in the demigod realm for some time. Take advantage of this trip to the northern region of the primeval desolate land and strive to break through in one go. Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists. Definitely. Lingxiao College. Jiuheng Mountain. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged in the room. Her expression was serious, and there was a rare hint of nervousness in her eyes. She raised her hand and drew something in the air in front of her. It was a small Xian formation. If someone was here at this moment, they would realize that this small Xian formation was extremely similar to the one quietly shining on the floor of the room. Chu Luiyue was trying to copy this Xian formation. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1304. She had tried many times before, but all of them ended in failure. However, she had never given up. Even if she was only slightly more accurate than before, she still did not feel tired. As Chu Luiyue had been in a tense state for a long time and spent a lot of energy researching Xian formations, she was actually very tired at this point, and her eyes were bloodshot. However, the feeling of being on the verge of breaking it and the urge to do so had been supporting her. Her surroundings were quiet. Chu Luiyue could even hear her own heart beating. She could hear the sound of blood flowing in her ears. Her hands started to tremble slightly. It was extremely difficult for her to forcefully construct a Xian formation of this level with her current realm. The force in her body was being consumed crazily. Her vision was also turning black, as if she was going to collapse in the next second. However, her heart was incomparably resolute. Flames seemed to be burning in her black jade-like eyes. Finally, her hand slowly landed on the last stroke. The Xian formation in front of her was completely outlined. Buzz. A subtle fluctuation spread out from the small Xian formation. Chu Luiyue's chest shook. A sweet and fishy taste instantly filled her mouth. She forcefully swallowed the blood and quickly adjusted her breathing. She urged the force in her body to surge. The Xian formation was only half complete. If she wanted to completely decipher the Xian formation, there were still important steps to take. She could not make any mistakes. Chu Luiyue concentrated and gathered all the force in her limbs and bones into her palms. Then she poured it into the Xian formation in front of her. The light on it gradually became brighter and more dazzling. The fluctuation on it also became bigger and bigger. However, the force in her body was almost exhausted very quickly. Her previous attempts had already consumed a large amount of her strength. She was truly an arrow at the end of its flight. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment. Finally, she mobilized the divine power stored in the water droplet. A ferocious aura instantly gushed out from her body. Chu Luiyue's palms shone brightly. Following the continuous consumption of that divine power, the Xian formation in front of her finally expanded to the height of half a person. This was an octagonal Xian formation. Streams of light crisscrossed on it, forming complicated patterns. Ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it. If they looked at it for too long, it was not impossible for them to faint. Chu Luiyue held his breath and extended his right hand forward, gently covering the center of the profound formation. At this moment, the Xian formation on the ground that was flickering with a lustrous radiance suddenly seemed to have sensed the summoning of some kind of power and slowly rose up from the ground. It was smooth and resplendent, majestic and impressive. There was actually a small gap in the middle of it. Chu Luiyue's heart settled. That was the key to deciphering this Xian formation. With a light push of her palm, she pushed the small Xian formation that she had copied onto the empty space in the middle of the Xian formation. The two Xian formations merged perfectly. In the next moment, it dissipated with a bang. The light gradually dissipated. Chu Luiyue supported himself with one hand on the armrest and slowly stood up. Everything in the room had returned to normal. The Xian formation that had trapped her for several days had now disappeared without a trace. Chu Luiyue stood at the same spot for a while, then took out a pill and swallowed it. A gentle force instantly flowed down her windpipe. That feeling of exhaustion instantly eased by quite a bit. She wiped the trace of blood from the corner of her mouth. She inadvertently looked up and happened to see herself in the mirror. Her face was somewhat haggard, her lips were pale, and only her pair of eyes were bright and dazzling. Reality proved that the days of being tortured by Dabeo were not in vain. She could no longer remember how many times she had sparred with Dabeo on the chessboard. Every time, she would be tortured to death by him, leaving nothing behind. Every time she felt that her strength had increased, Dabeo would also increase his strength to the corresponding level. In short, she was firmly suppressed every time. After a long time, Chu Luiyue herself had already started to get used to it. In the beginning, she still fantasized that she could be on par with Dabeo one day, but gradually she gave up on this idea. At least in the short term, it was very unrealistic. But she neglected one point. She was not comparable to Dabeo now, but under Dabeo's guidance, her strength was actually increasing rapidly every day. Compared to others, she was definitely an extraordinary existence. Just like now, she had actually silently broken through to become a Xian King Master. Chu Luiyue spent about 15 minutes adjusting her state. After her body recovered a little, she walked outside. Without the restriction of the Xian formation, it seemed to have become much easier. Chu Luiyue looked forward. It was evening. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was filled with red clouds. The mountain breeze blew over, bringing with it a hint of coolness, causing her to instantly sober up. She actually broke through just like that. Chu Luiyue blinked and looked at her hand, still feeling a little dazed. A subtle emotion welled up in her heart. I still remember so many Xian formations, she muttered softly, her eyes complicated. Just now, the moment she broke the Xian formation, the fifth crack appeared on the black pyramid in her dantian. At the same time, many memories appeared in her mind. However, there were no people or scenes in these memories. There were only incomparably exquisite Xian formations and numerous prescriptions. The things that appeared were obviously better than what she had seen before. In Chu Luiyue's memory, she had never seen these things before. However, these contents appeared clearly in her mind. From these broken memories, Chu Luiyue seemed to have glimpsed a corner of the past that she had forgotten. She turned her gaze and looked at the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower. Dignified, solemn, dignified. She thought of the green cloud ranking that appeared on the black wall. So, she was already a Xian King Master and a doctor. I just don't know. Is this the end? Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Meng Yi was leisurely lying down to rest. Suddenly, his ears twitched and he opened half an eye. A familiar young man's figure appeared not far away. It was Chu Yu. He made a sound of surprise and sat up. Chu Yu, why are you here today? I heard that your health isn't good, so I didn't follow Bo Yen and the others to the northern border of the great desolate land. Is your body better now? Chu Luiyue turned around and smiled brightly at Elder Meng Yi. Thank you for your concern, Elder Meng Yi. This student's body is already fine. Elder Meng Yi was slightly relieved. He chuckled and waved his cattail leaf fan. Why, your body has just recovered, and you're here to pick herbs again? Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed. She pursed her lips and smiled, as if she was a little embarrassed. That's right. Elder Meng Yi wouldn't think that this student is annoying, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1305. How could that be? Elder Meng Yi fanned himself vigorously. Don't worry, I haven't had the time to send the bill for the herbs you collected here to Wan Zheng. It won't be too late to show it to him when he comes back. During this period of time, just take whatever herbs you want. As he spoke, he smacked his lips, narrowed his eyes, and said leisurely, all these years he only accepted you as his disciple. Wouldn't he dote on you like the apple of his eye? I reckon he wants to leave all the good stuff for you. What are these herbs worth? Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. She could hear a hint of schadenfreude in his voice. She bowed politely. Thank you, Elder. With that, she walked to the side and began to pick the herbs seriously. Elder Meng Yi lay back down. When he thought of Wan Zheng's expression when he came back and saw the bill, he could not help but whistle. That scene would be very exciting. Chu Luiwei did not lack herbs. When Rong Xiu gave her the universe ring, there was already a lot stored in it. Later on, she obtained a lot from different channels. In addition, after entering the academy, she had come to the Medicine Wind Valley many times. She definitely had enough medicinal herbs. However, ever since she thought of those Xian formations and prescriptions, Chu Luiwei felt that she was lacking a lot. In addition, she had flipped through the physician's medicine scripture during this period of time. She really needed to come here to collect more herbs. Soon, Chu Luiwei picked a lot of herbs again. Unknowingly, she walked to the edge of the garden again. A faint pressure came from the front. Chu Luiwei paused in her actions and looked up. The barrier of the Medicine Wind Valley was not far in front of her. The sky gradually darkened, and the barrier shone with a faint glow. An impulse suddenly rose in Chu Luiwei's heart. She wanted to enter the herb garden to take a look. Ever since she confirmed her identity, she had thought of this more than once. However, it was too difficult, so she had not been able to do it. On one hand, the location of the herb garden was extremely special. It was almost impossible to enter it without attracting anyone's attention. On the other hand, she had repeatedly made mistakes in the academy. If she was caught red-handed again, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. However, it was impossible to completely suppress this thought. Instead, it became more and more obvious as time passed. Especially today, after breaking through to the mystic Imperial Master Realm, this kind of impulse surged to the peak. At this moment, she suddenly felt a gaze on her back. That was Elder Meng Ye's gaze. Chu Luiwei calmly picked up a few medicinal herbs around him. He wandered around for a while and then packed up his things to settle the bill. Only then did the seemingly solid gaze gradually weaken its power. Elder Meng Yi looked lazy, but he was actually very cautious and meticulous. Everything in the vast Medicine Wind Valley was under his control. Trying to do anything under his nose was simply courting death. After Chu Luiwei accounted for all the medicinal ingredients, he respectfully bid farewell and left the Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Meng Yi looked at her departing figure and scratched his chin with the cattail leaf fan before lying back down. By the time Chu Luiwei returned to Mount Zhouheng, the sky was already completely dark. She meditated and cultivated quietly in her room, adjusting her condition to the best. Late at night, Chu Luiwei opened her eyes and changed into a long black robe, covering herself up tightly. She glanced outside. The full moon was bright and clear like water. It was so quiet that only the sound of the wind passing through the mountains could be heard. She raised her hand. On her wrist, the light pink peach blossoms slowly bloomed. In the next moment, her figure disappeared from the room. This was the time when the night was at its thickest. The entire academy was silent. Chu Luiwei's figure appeared in a dark corner. The thick trees beside her completely covered her shadow. There was no one around. After staying in the academy for so long, Chu Luiwei had already been to almost all the places where students could go. Now that she was very familiar with the entire academy's terrain, she could easily avoid the places where people would appear and take the remote paths. She looked around and confirmed the direction. Then, with a thought, she quickly left. After a few turns, Chu Luiwei finally entered the Mystic Master area and arrived at the foot of a mountain very close to the center. She looked up and suddenly felt as if her heart had been hit by something. "This is it," Chu Luiwei said silently in her heart. This place had appeared many times in her memory and had a special meaning to her. Mount Yuheng. The mountain peak was tall and steep. On one side was a mountain range that extended downwards, and on the other was a steep cliff. At a glance, it looked as if someone had slashed down from the sky with a sword, directly splitting it into this state. On the cliff, there was an octagonal pavilion. Chu Luiwei's breathing stopped. The scene that had only appeared in her mind appeared before her eyes just like that. She clenched her fists and walked forward. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt an obscure yet powerful pressure. Chu Luiwei frowned. Only then did she realize that there was a barrier around Mount Yuheng. And its level was not low. According to the scene in her memory, the medicinal garden was directly opposite Mount Yuheng, separated by a river. It was not possible to go over from Medicine Wind Valley, so this was the only way left. But she did not expect there to be a barrier here as well. Chu Luiyue did not dare to move carelessly, afraid that she would accidentally cause some commotion and attract people over. If that happened, she would not be able to explain herself. However, she was extremely unwilling to give up just like that and turn around to leave. Just as Chu Luiyue was worrying about this, two people's voices suddenly came from behind her. "Say, do you think the elders have arrived?" Chu Luiyue was shocked. She quickly hid behind a huge rock at the side and hid her aura at the same time. Looking at the time, it should be about time. After all, our academy has a teleportation formation that allows us to go directly. Isn't it much more convenient than others? The people who spoke seemed to be two young men. They should be students of the academy. But Chu Luiyue found their voices unfamiliar. She probably did not know them. That's true. Maybe not long later, they will be able to see the legendary Heavenly Square Cauldron with their own eyes. Unfortunately, we are not strong enough and do not even have the qualifications to go. So, let's cultivate diligently. There might be other opportunities in the future. In the end, it's still because we are not talented enough. Say, if we had half of Senior Rong Xiu's talent, we would be better than now, right? He has Mount Yuheng all to himself. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Her body suddenly fell backward uncontrollably. Buzz. Mount Yuheng's barrier shook violently. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1306. This movement instantly alerted the two people who were talking. Who is it? Chu Luiyue's heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly by something. If they found out, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. When they didn't hear a response, the two students looked at each other with solemn expressions. One of them called out loudly, "Who's there? Why are you sneaking around? Come out. Otherwise, we won't be polite." Fine beads of sweat appeared on Chu Luiyue's forehead. She looked at the peach blossom on her wrist. If they got any closer, she could only swoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. It was the man who spoke who threw a short sword first. "Come out." The other person had already rushed forward. Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth, circulated the force in her body, and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt that something was wrong behind her. She subconsciously looked back and instantly widened her eyes in shock. Because, behind her, Jadeite Mountain's barrier suddenly cracked open. The short sword stabbed into the rock in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue steeled her heart and directly flashed in. The black figure instantly disappeared on the spot. The moment she left, one of the men had already rushed over and looked directly behind the boulder. The tense expression on his face instantly froze. The other man also followed at this moment and asked, "Who is it?" The man who came first frowned and shook his head at him. "No one." "No one? How is that possible?" The man who spoke pulled out his dagger and looked behind the boulder. "I clearly felt that there was someone here just now. And there was also a fluctuation in the barrier just now, wasn't there? But there's really no one here. I didn't see anyone escape just now. The fluctuation in the barrier has already calmed down. Then what's going on? Could it be that both of us saw wrongly?" The two of them were silent for a moment and carefully looked around, but still didn't find anything unusual. This made them somewhat discouraged, and they gradually began to suspect that they had guessed wrongly. Maybe we really did make a mistake. Jadeite Mountain's enchantment is extremely sturdy. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter. One of the men whispered and shook his head. "Forget it, let's go back." The two of them searched to no avail. In the end, they left regretfully and puzzledly. Hearing their footsteps getting further and further away, Chu Luiyue finally exhaled slowly. She glanced back. The transparent barrier had already returned to normal, and no one could tell that someone had just passed through it. Chu Luiyue looked at his own body in disbelief. She actually came in just like that? When the barrier came into contact with her, not only did it not resist, it even opened and let her in, Could it be that this barrier could sense her aura and power? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter aside for now. He raised his eyes and looked around. Soon, she found the way up the mountain according to her vague memory. She calmed herself down and walked forward. Unlike many other mountains in the academy, Jadeite Mountain was quite exquisite. Although it was steep and tall, the exquisiteness and layout of the mountain seemed to have been carefully arranged by someone. It was pleasing to the eye and very pleasing to the eye. Neatly chiseled steps extended up the mountain. Chu Luiyue walked up the steps, looking at the scenery on both sides from time to time. The familiar feeling in her heart grew stronger. She had indeed been here before. Chu Luiyue thought about it as she walked. With the real scene in front of her eyes, the originally blurry images gradually became clearer. Finally, Chu Luiyue arrived at the top of the mountain. An antique octagonal pavilion stood beside the cliff. Inside the pavilion, there was a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the stone table, there was a chessboard, and on each side was a chess jar. Everything was exactly the same as the scene in her memory. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She walked over step by step, and almost instinctively sat down on one of the stone stools. The chessboard was as clean as new, and the chess jar was well preserved. Everything was as if no one had ever left. Chu Luiyue reached out as if wanting to touch it, but halfway through she hesitated and stopped. Homesickness was probably what it felt like to be close to home. The scene that she had imagined countless times finally happened, but she suddenly didn't dare to do anything, as if she was afraid that she would disturb something. A gust of wind blew over from the mountains, bringing with it an extremely faint bitter fragrance of herbs. Chu Luiyue looked up. Under the bright moon, the world was clear and bright. Under the cliff, the river surged, and on the opposite side, there were layers upon layers of mountains. And in between those mountains, there was a unique scenery. It was a herb garden. A layer of barrier covered it, and from the outside, it couldn't be seen clearly. Only a vague outline could be seen. But even so, it was not hard to imagine what kind of lush scenery it was inside. Chu Luiyue was a little dazed for a moment. This feeling was too familiar and too natural. For a moment, she almost thought that she had been here all this time and had never left. Every blade of grass, every tree, every table, and every stool here was the same as before, without a speck of dust. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she finally got up, tipped her toes, and flew forward. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1307. The night sky was silent. Chu Luiyue moved like a ghost and soon arrived at a mountain on the opposite side. Standing there, she finally saw the appearance of the herb garden surrounded by the mountains. What she saw made her hold her breath. She didn't blink, as if she was afraid of missing something. This herb garden was actually a depression in the middle of the surrounding mountains. But for some reason, its altitude was relatively high. It was basically halfway up these mountains. Vast, atmospheric, and full of vitality. This was Chu Luiyue's first impression of it. A layer of fog-like barrier completely enveloped it. Just now, when she was standing on Mount Yuheng and looking over here, Chu Luiyue could only see a blurry mist because of the distance. But now that she was standing closer, it was much clearer. Chu Luiyue could even vaguely see some medicinal herbs planted inside. With a single glance, she understood that the rumors she had heard from Zhong Sun back then were not false. Because the medicinal herbs she could identify were all extremely precious and rare. Even though there was a barrier between them, Chu Luiyue could still smell the fragrance that was spreading out from it. It was somewhat similar to the Medicine Wind Valley, but not the same. The fragrance of the medicinal herbs was mostly bitter. However, the smell in this herb garden had a hint of sweetness. Suddenly her gaze focused. Looking over, she saw a large number of blooming dancing lotuses. They swayed with the wind, graceful and beautiful. A trace of doubt flashed in Chu Luiyue's eyes. These were all planted by her? Although she liked dancing lotuses, it was extremely troublesome to take care of them, and their flowering period was very short. According to her personality, It didn't seem like she would have the patience and energy to do such a thing. She walked a little further before she saw two rattan chairs by the side of the lake. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. One of them should be hers. Then, what about the second one? Before she could figure out this question, a fluctuation suddenly came from the barrier of the herb garden. Chu Luiyue was shocked. This time, she didn't touch the barrier. Why did it suddenly move? The next moment, a trace of vigilance suddenly appeared in her heart, and she quickly looked in the other direction of the herb garden. Someone opened the barrier and walked in. From the looks of it, they seemed to have come from the Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Luiyue immediately retreated and hid himself. She felt that she should check the almanac before going out today. To think that he would meet so many people along the way at this time. She fixed her eyes on that person and found that person's figure was somewhat familiar. After looking carefully, she noticed that the person was actually Elder Meng Yi. At this moment, he was holding a palm leaf fan in one hand and walking barefoot into the herb garden. He walked over with familiarity, then stood beside a large patch of medicinal herbs and rolled up his sleeves and trousers. Chu Luiyue suddenly guessed something and his heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, in the next moment, she saw Elder Meng Yi personally go down to take care of the medicinal herbs. Chu Luiyue sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the scene in disbelief. Elder Meng Yi is helping me manage the herb garden? Elder Meng Yi was a Xian master and also a celestial physician, so he could do these things with ease. And looking at the number of herbs, it didn't seem like it was the first time he had done this. Looking at the figure who was bending over and seriously pulling out the withered medicinal herbs, Chu Luiyue's emotions were very complicated. She had never imagined that she would see such a scene when she came here today. Elder Meng Yi is not only in charge of the Medicine Wind Valley, but also this herb garden? According to everyone, she had already left for several years, and even her name had almost become a taboo. She originally thought that she had been deliberately forgotten. Who would have thought? Phew, Elder Meng Yi finally finished taking care of the large patch of medicinal herbs. He straightened up, held his waist, and let out a long breath. That girl ran off to have fun by herself and left this mess to this old man. Yet, the herbs planted here were all extremely precious, and all of them needed to be taken care of. If it weren't for that girl, he wouldn't have bothered. The tip of Chu Luiyue's nose twitched. Elder Meng Yi grumbled for a while, then walked to another area and repeated what he had just done. After tossing and turning for about an hour, he finally stopped. He looked around with satisfaction and clapped his hands. Let's see if I don't collect the debt from you for these few years later. With that, Elder Meng Yi finally turned around and left. The barrier sealed. Everything returned to normal. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to go forward, a fluctuation suddenly came from her dantian. She was shocked and realized that the movement came from Dumpling. It seemed very unusual. It has already begun to fuse with the power of the Tianlei that it swallowed and is preparing to activate the power of its bloodline. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice came in time, calm and powerful. This process may cause a huge commotion. It's better to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, once someone discovered, Chu Luiyue's whereabouts today would definitely be discovered. Chu Luiyue frowned, then quickly nodded. I got it. She retreated without hesitation. After taking a few steps, she could not help but look back. In just a moment, she retracted her gaze, moved her body, and quickly left. The fluctuation from Dumpling's body grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, even Chu Luiyue felt that it was difficult to control. She rushed back to Mount Jiuheng as fast as she could. As soon as she entered the room, she immediately summoned Dumpling. Dumpling? Dumpling. Dumpling's eyes were still closed, and there were no signs of it waking up. The process of awakening the power of its bloodline is long and complicated. If it can't wake up in time, it's very likely that due to the power riot, whoosh! A huge black figure appeared in the room. The legendary three-eyed eagle folded its wings and stared sharply at Dumpling. You must wake it up as soon as possible and awaken the power of its bloodline on its own, and control it. In just 2 short sentences, Chu Luiyue clearly understood the danger of this matter. She looked at Dumpling, and a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. But it hasn't moved until now, and I can't wake it up no matter what." As she spoke, an even stronger invisible fluctuation spread out from Dumpling's body. Now, there was no longer any flickering silver tianlei on its body. It was just a furry red ball lying quietly on the table, looking very obedient. If it was any other time, Chu Luiwei might be very happy to see it like this, but now, she only felt more and more worried. "Continue to call it. Before that, I will help it guide the awakening power of its bloodline in its body. But I can only help so much. In the end, it still has to rely on itself." Chu Luiwei gritted her teeth. "I got it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network." Chapter 1308. Time began to pass unendingly. In the room, Chu Luiwei kept trying to wake Dumpling up, but to no avail. But as time passed, Dumpling's aura became more and more powerful. At first, the legendary three-eyed eagle could still control the power to redirect it into its body and refine its flesh. But as Dumpling's power became more and more powerful, the legendary three-eyed eagle began to struggle. Although it was also a divine beast, and its level was not low, awakening the power of the bloodline was not something that outsiders could interfere with. Chu Luiwei tried various methods, but Dumpling remained indifferent. That pair of tightly shut eyes showed no signs of opening. Boom! A wave spread out and hit the barrier that Chu Luiwei had set up before, making a muffled sound. The barrier began to shake. Chu Luiwei rubbed her temples. According to the current pattern of Dumpling's power increasing, her barrier would be broken in about an hour. This can't go on. Chu Luiwei looked worriedly at the legendary three-eyed eagle. "Is there any other way?" The legendary three-eyed eagle shook its head. "Only when it wakes up can it smoothly solve all these problems. Even if its kin came, it would be useless. If we let these powers flow uncontrollably in its body, I'm afraid." It did not finish its words, but Chu Luiwei knew what it meant. After thinking for a long time, she suddenly asked, "Can I help it?" A look of surprise flashed across the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. "What?" Chu Luiwei repeated seriously, "I'm its master. We have a contractual relationship and are closely connected. It can be said that we breathe and share the same fate. Can I help it?" The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment. "With your help, it can naturally hold on for a while. But fundamentally it can't. Then it's decided." Chu Luiwei did not wait for the legendary three-eyed eagle to finish speaking and made a prompt decision. At this time, even a little help would be good. The longer they held on, the greater their hope. As long as they could wait until Dumpling woke up, everything was not worth mentioning. "Are you sure you want to do this?" The legendary three-eyed eagle stared at Chu Luiwei, its eyes full of disapproval and warning. "You have to know that the bloodline power of the red-tailed phoenix is extremely fierce and violent. It's not something that the human race can withstand. Chu Luiwei's plan to use her own flesh and blood to resist it is simply ridiculous." She did not care about her own safety at all. But Chu Luiwei's lips. "Although I'm to be honest with you, my physical strength is not inferior to that of a 9th-rank warrior. Also, if there is any danger, I have the ability to protect myself. You know this very well, don't you?" But the legendary three-eyed eagle wanted to persuade him again. "In addition, the most important thing is that Tuanzi is my friend as well as my family. I can't just stand by and watch, even if I have to pay a painful price." Chu Luiwei's voice was very soft, but every word he said seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Something flashed in the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. Boom! Chu Luiwei's barrier began to crumble. "I can't hesitate any longer." Chu Luiwei placed his hand on Dumpling's body and slowly closed his eyes. "Let's begin." Early morning. Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng arrived at Mount Jiuheng early in the morning. On one hand, they wanted to visit Chu Luiwei's illness. On the other hand, Luo Yanming had always wanted to find an opportunity to spar with Chu Luiwei about Xian formations, but she never had the chance, so she planned to try today. If Chu Luiwei's body was fine, then they could start today. The two of them shouted twice outside the barrier, but no one answered. Could it be that this fellow hasn't woken up yet? Zhuosheng asked suspiciously. Luo Yanming frowned and raised her voice to shout again. There was still no response. Something's wrong. Luo Yanming frowned slightly. It was not the first time they came to call for him. Chu Luye always came out very quickly, but this time, no one responded and no one could see him. Could there really be a problem? The joking expression on Zhuosheng's face disappeared. He took a few steps forward, but was quickly pushed back by the pressure of the barrier. He looked at Luo Yanming with some hesitation. He hasn't gone out recently, right? Luo Yanming shook her head. I saw him go to the Medicine Wind Valley yesterday evening. He should have gone to get medicine. It's impossible for him to not return for a night. The two of them looked at each other and were worried. Is it really because he's sick? Zhuosheng's face was full of suspicion. If it's not an important illness, he shouldn't give up the opportunity to go to the primeval north. No, I think we should ask the elders to come over and take a look. Luo Yanming was still a little uncertain at first, but after listening to him, she felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement. You stay here first. I'll ask Master to come over. He seems to be able to enter Jiuheng Mountain. With that, Luo Yanming turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from within Jiuheng Mountain. Boom! The two of them were startled and looked over at the same time. No, there was nothing. That sound seemed to have come from inside the room. The two of them looked even more tense. At first, it was just a guess, but now, perhaps something had really happened. Luo Yanming did not say anything and immediately left at full speed. Only Zhuosheng was left at the scene, looking at Jiuheng Mountain with a face full of worry. Inside the room, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged with her eyes closed. Her face was flushed red, and her brows were tightly knitted, as if she was suffering from some kind of great pain. In front of her, Dumpling was lying there quietly, motionless. The color of the feathers on its body gradually became denser, and the aura around its body also rapidly increased. Waves of energy spread out in all directions. A portion of this energy was devoured by the three-eyed eagle, while the remaining portion flowed into Chu Luiyue's body. The veins on her forehead bulged, and the blood in her body flowed as if it was boiling. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1309. Chu Luiyue's physical strength was definitely one of the best among warriors of the same level or even higher. Now that she had undergone a lot of tempering, even if she had to deal with the attacks of two puppets of the 9th rank, it would not be a problem. However, this was only compared to the human race. At this moment, Chu Luiyue finally understood what the three-eyed eagle meant by those warnings. The endurance of magical beasts and humans were not on the same level. The bloodline power in Dumpling's body was gradually awakening. This power could be said to be terrifying. Even though her body had undergone a lot of tempering, it was still a little difficult for her to deal with this power. Her flesh and bones felt like they were about to be torn apart. The violent power surged like a river, instantly devouring everything. Chu Luiyue endured the torture of this power on her body and reintroduced it into Dumpling's body. At the same time, she kept calling out Dumpling's name in her heart, hoping that it would wake up as soon as possible. However, as time went by, Tuanzi didn't respond. Elder Hua Feng rushed over with Luo Yanming. Where's Chu Yu? Zhuosheng quickly said. He should still be inside. But the situation may be a little dangerous. In this short period of time, another muffled sound came from inside. He felt uneasy when he heard it. Elder Hua Feng frowned and took a few steps forward. On the way here, he had already heard Luo Yanming explain the situation. This old man will go in and take a look. Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng were about to follow, but they were nailed to the ground by his gaze. You guys stay here. If there really was a situation inside, these two people would not be enough for him to worry about. Seeing the usually amiable Elder Hua Feng reveal such a serious expression, the two of them did not dare to say anything. They only nodded and obediently stayed where they were. Elder Hua Feng raised his hand, took out the green jade token, and placed it on the barrier. The barrier opened. Elder Hua Feng quickly flashed in. Someone is coming. The voice of the three-eyed eagle suddenly entered her ears. Chu Luiwei had been in a tense state, so she didn't hear Luo Yanming and the others' shouts. But at this moment, the words of the legendary three-eyed eagle finally made her sober up. Who is it? Normally, almost no one would casually enter or leave this place. It doesn't seem to be Rong Xiu. If it was him, she should be able to sense it. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly replied. Chu Luiwei gritted her teeth. Come back first. The fact that the legendary three-eyed eagle was her contracted mythological beast must not be easily discovered by others. Otherwise, her true identity would be discovered at any moment. But Dumpling's bloodline power had yet to be completely awakened. Once it stopped, the torment and pressure Chu Luiwei would have to endure would be double or even more. Chu Luiwei shook his head. I have my ways. The legendary three-eyed eagle had no choice but to withdraw into Chu Luiwei's dantian. Boom! A terrifying force crushed over, causing Chu Luiwei's chest to tighten, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Yu? Are you inside? Elder Huafeng's voice was filled with anxiety and worry as he approached. Chu Luiwei endured the intense pain all over her body and picked up Dumpling, hugged her tightly in her arms, and ran outside. Bang! Elder Huafeng was about to push the door open when it suddenly opened and a figure rushed out. It was Chu Yu. Elder Huafeng was about to speak when Chu Luiwei brushed past him. Elder Huafeng, I have something urgent to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I'll explain to you when I come back. Elder Huafeng was a little confused. He quickly followed and grabbed Chu Luiwei. Wait, Chu Yu, what's wrong with you? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Chu Luiwei's current appearance clearly and was immediately shocked. Because at this moment, her originally fair and delicate face was already flushed red. The veins on her forehead were throbbing, and her brows were tightly furrowed. Her clothes were almost drenched in sweat. It was as if she had just undergone some torture. Elder Huafeng, I really don't have time to explain it to you in detail now. Please let me go over first. Chu Luiwei hugged Dumpling even tighter and said hurriedly. Elder Huafeng was even more confused, but seeing her like this, he didn't dare to do anything and immediately let go. However, he still couldn't help but ask, Are you going there? If you encounter any difficulties, feel free to tell me. I'll help you think of a way. Chu Luiwei's heart warmed. If it weren't for the fact that she was almost unable to withstand the surging bloodline power in Dumpling's body, she would have stayed and chatted for a while. Thank you, Elder. Without saying a word, she turned around and ran. Sigh, you child. Elder Huafeng was also anxious. Anyone could tell that something had really happened. He hurriedly followed. At this moment, Chu Luiwei had already run all the way and was rushing straight in a certain direction. Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng saw her, but before they could say anything, she had already rushed over. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind. But soon he realized that something was wrong. Because the direction Chu Luiwei was heading towards was actually the Beast Park. When Chu Luiwei arrived, she saw Elder Yu Yu and immediately felt as if she had seen her savior. Elder Yu Yu, please open the enchantment. I'll borrow this Beast Park for a while. Digression. The explosive update is here. Please throw the evaluation votes and monthly votes over as if they don't cost anything. Plant a monthly vote and you'll reap a diligent February. There's a small surprise at noon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1310. Elder Yu Yu was shocked by the scene in front of him. Chu Yu? What's wrong with you? Elder Huafeng hurriedly shouted from behind. Don't ask. Open the barrier and let him in. At this moment, Elder Yu Yu finally saw Chu Luiwei's sorry state. He didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly opened the barrier. An entrance slowly opened. Chu Luiwei immediately sped up and rushed in. Thank you, Elder Yu Yu. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed inside. Elder Yu Yu only felt a gust of wind blow past, and Chu Yu disappeared. He hurriedly turned around and saw that the young man was rushing straight to the inner area of the beast park at an astonishing speed. Elder Hua Feng followed closely behind. Elder Yu Yu immediately followed with a frown. Hua Feng, what's going on? Why did Chu Yu suddenly rush over in such a hurry early in the morning? Moreover, there was something wrong with the way he looked. As Elder Hua Feng rushed forward, he said, I'm not sure now. That kid didn't have time to say anything and went straight here. I don't know what he wants to do. After that, he briefly recounted the events of the day to Elder Yu Yu, causing Elder Yu Yu's brows to knit together tightly. If he's sick, why did he come here? This beast park is full of all kinds of ferocious magical beasts. Wouldn't it be even more dangerous for him to barge in rashly? Elder Yu Yu really couldn't figure it out. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's follow him and see what he wants to do. As Elder Hua Feng spoke, he sped up again. On the other side, Chu Luiyue really used all her strength and rushed to a mountain peak as fast as she could. As if sensing her aura, a huge steel spine beast walked out of the cave and looked in the direction of Chu Luiyue. Aqiong! Chu Luiyue shouted and quickly flew down. After landing in front of the cave, she hurriedly walked inside. Aqiong, do me a favor. Seeing Chu Luiyue's current state, Aqiong's originally joyful and longing expression instantly became tense and serious. It followed Chu Yu inside. Tao Tao seemed to be sleeping. He opened his eyes slowly when he heard the noise. Out of the corner of its eye, it saw a familiar figure and immediately got up happily. However, just as it was about to go over happily, it realized that there was something wrong with Chu Luiyue. At this moment, Aqiong also walked in and looked at Chu Luiyue worriedly. Tao Tao ran to his mother hurriedly. Under the gaze of the mother and son, Chu Luiyue loosened his embrace. A furry dumpling was revealed. Aqiong and Dumpling both took a step back, their eyes filled with awe and shock. The red-tailed red phoenix had the power of the blood of the red-tailed red phoenix, one of the two ancient mythical beasts, so it was respected even among the mythical beasts. In addition, it was at the critical moment of the awakening of the power of the blood. The pressure from the blood was even stronger, so it would naturally make Aqiong and others surrender unconsciously. At this moment, Chu Luiyue looked back at Aqiong. There seemed to be a flame burning in her black jade-like eyes. There were already red bloodstains slowly oozing out on her clothes, soaking her clothes. Because it couldn't bear the power of the blood that was awakening in Dumpling's body, Chu Luiyue's skin began to crack. Aqiong's expression became serious, and she immediately understood what happened. Chu Luiyue swallowed the blood in her throat with difficulty. Aqiong, before she finished speaking, Aqiong had already walked forward and lay beside Chu Luiyue and Dumpling. It lowered its head and touched Dumpling with its horns. A portion of Dumpling's power began to surge into its body. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed, and the pressure on her body immediately lessened. She said word by word, Aqiong, thank you. After seeing Chu Luiyue's figure disappear into the cave, Elder Yu Yu frowned and stopped. Elder Hua Feng was about to continue rushing over when he was stopped. Hua Feng, wait. That mountain is the territory of the steel spine beast. We can't get close easily. What time is it now? Even if we can't get close, we have to go. Elder Hua Feng was anxious. He pushed his hand away and was about to go over. That steel spine beast is a mythical beast. With Chu Yu's current state, how can he be its match? Elder Yu Yu sighed helplessly and said, It's precisely because it's a steel spine beast that I can be a little more at ease. I can't ignore Chu Yu just because it's dangerous, right? Elder Hua Feng was stunned. What do you mean by that? That steel spine beast has a close relationship with Chu Yu, so it won't hurt him. I think that Chu Yu came this time to ask for the steel spine beast's help. Elder Hua Feng was at a loss. Chu Yu? Has a close relationship with the steel spine beast? What the hell is going on? Seeing Elder Hua Feng's puzzled face, Elder Yu Yu could only briefly explain what had happened to him. With every sentence he said, Elder Hua Feng's expression became more and more shocked. In the end, he was almost completely stunned. That's how it is. Although I don't know why the steel spine beast is willing to sacrifice its life for Chu Luiyue, I'm sure that now that Chu Luiyue has gone over, not only will it not hurt him, it will even do its best to help. So, let's just watch for now. Elder Hua Feng didn't say anything for a long time. There was too much information, and he couldn't accept it for a while. Chu Yu was actually punished to be locked up here for a month? And then he broke through to the 8th rank here? And even one of the mythical beasts here, the steel spine beast, was willing to sacrifice its life to protect him. Elder Hua Feng held his forehead with a headache and closed his eyes. Elder Yu looked at him sympathetically. When these things happened one after another, even he was shocked speechless, let alone Elder Hua Feng who didn't know anything about it. Since that's the case, doesn't that mean that Chu Yu should be safe now? Elder Hua Feng asked, his voice a little shaky. Half and half. He obviously came for the steel spine beast. Perhaps he was sure that the steel spine beast could help him. It's a pity that we don't know what's wrong with him, so we can only wait and see. As Elder Yu spoke, he patted Elder Hua Feng's arm comfortingly. Don't worry. That kid's life is very tough, nothing will happen to him. That night, he was besieged by so many mythical beasts, but he survived unscathed, let alone now? Elder Hua Feng's mood was complicated, and he could only let out a long sigh. I hope so. Silence reigned in the cave. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. Not far in front of her was Dumpling, who was lying on the ground, and beside her was a Qiong. Terrifying forces were wreaking havoc in her body. The ground beneath her was gradually dyed red with blood. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1311. After a long time, Dumpling's wings finally moved. It seemed that she was about to wake up. Chu Luiyue was happy in her heart, but she didn't dare to relax at all. Her body seemed to be cut by countless knives, and the severe pain came from all parts of her body. No matter how powerful she was just a warrior at the 8th level now. How could she bear the power of a divine beast? Especially, it was the power of the red-tailed phoenix, which was almost the top bloodline. Qiong was next to her, taking most of the power into its own body. Gradually, tiny cracks began to appear on its incredibly tough skin. Blood flowed out slowly. Wu, seeing this scene, Tao Tao was afraid and worried. His eyes were full of panic. He ran over and touched Qiong's body. Qiong didn't move. Looking at the blood on the ground, Tao Tao shed tears again. He simply put his horns over and wanted to help. Chu Luiyue noticed the movement and warned in a low voice, Tao Tao, step back. Now it was not an adult, and its strength was not enough in all aspects. It didn't even cross the threshold of a divine beast. How could it bear the power of Dumpling? Qiong also opened its eyes and kicked Tao Tao away. Tao Tao rolled on the ground for half a circle. It was stained with a lot of blood and mud. It looked very embarrassed. It got up unwillingly and wanted to go again. Qiong made a low cry in its throat, which was full of majesty. Tao Tao was so scared that he stood still. He didn't dare to move again, but his tears kept falling down. Chu Luiyue's mouth overflowed with blood. Her internal organs seemed to be stirred crazily. She was very uncomfortable. Soon, her red cheeks became pale, and all the blood faded away quickly. A feeling of collapse came from the depths of her body, and the scene in front of her began to turn white. Chu Luiyue knew that she was already a spent arrow. It had been 2 or 3 hours since he found that Dumpling was going to break through last night. It was very amazing that Chu Luiyue could hold on until now. If it were other warriors at the 8th level, their bodies might have burst because they couldn't bear it. You can't go on like this. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle fell into her ears. Here I come. Chu Luiyue shook his head. That won't do. There are many demonic beasts here. Once you appear, they will definitely sense you. Moreover, Elder Yu and Elder Huafeng are outside as well. She couldn't take the risk. But you can't hold on any longer. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was exceptionally cold and firm. Do you want to die? The corners of Chu Luiyue's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an extremely faint smile. There are other ways. She was silent for a moment. Suddenly she looked at Tao Tao and said word by word, Tao Tao, if you want to save your mother, go to ask for help immediately. Tao Tao stopped crying. He looked at Chu Luiwei blankly with his big eyes. Foreign aid. What foreign aid? The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice became even colder. Those two humans have nothing to do with the red-tailed red phoenix. Even if they come, they can't help at all. You're still, who said I invited them? Chu Luiwei interrupted the legendary three-eyed eagle. The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned. Who else could it be? It seemed that there were only those two people who could come to help in this area. Chu Luiwei didn't answer its question. She just took a deep breath and endured the pain in her body. She said slowly, Silver Ear Piebald Beast, Nightmare Beast, Nine Thunder Giant Ape. The names of the mythological beasts came out from her mouth one by one. Ask them to come here immediately. After she finished speaking, the cave was silent for a moment. The legendary three-eyed eagle couldn't believe it and asked, You want to ask these mythological beasts to come here to help? These were all mythological beasts. They were all arrogant, fierce and violent. It was impossible for them to gather together to help anyone at the same time. Even those ninth-grade evil beasts would not be willing to listen to the orders of a human, let alone them. What was Chu Luiwei thinking about? Could it be that he had gone mad? Of course, Chu Luiwei was not crazy. On the contrary, she was extraordinarily calm. Dumpling is a mythological beast. It's useless for ninth-grade evil beasts to come here. Naturally, I want to ask these mythological beasts to come here. The legendary three-eyed eagle choked. For a moment, it didn't know how to refute. In its opinion, Chu Luiwei was just wishful thinking. Chu Luiwei didn't care about its opinion. She just looked at Tao Tao and urged him, It will be too late if you wait a little longer. Tao Tao was shocked. Then he reacted. He immediately turned around and ran outside. Just when he rushed to the entrance of the cave, Chu Luiwei shouted again, Wait! Tao Tao turned back. Chu Luiwei's voice was very light, but it seemed to be very powerful, which shocked people's minds. If they don't want to cooperate, just say that I asked them to come here. If anyone doesn't listen to me, I will slaughter the beast park again in the future. The waiting time seemed to be extremely long and unbearable. Elder Huafeng clasped his hands in front of him tightly. He frowned and kept staring at the mountain peak not far away. His heart seemed to be suspended by something. It was neither up nor down. He was very uncomfortable. Alas, there was a little noise just now. Why is there no sound at all now? I don't know how Chu Yu is now. Although Elder Yu was also very worried, he was much calmer than Elder Huafeng. After all, he saw with his own eyes how Chu Yu killed the golden cloud leopard and the black gold wolf with one sword. Seeing that Elder Huafeng was very worried, he thought for a while and comforted him, Huafeng, it's useless to be so nervous now. I've said that this guy's strength is good now. He won't. His voice suddenly stopped, and he looked surprised and doubtful. Elder Huafeng followed his gaze and looked at it. He was also puzzled at once. Is that the cub of the steel spine beast? Elder Yu nodded. It came out. What's inside? No, why did it run down the mountain? When they were talking, the cub of the steel spine beast that came out of the cave ran down the mountain quickly. Its speed was extremely fast. Bang, bang. Even the ground where it passed by was shaking. Elder Yu didn't know why, but he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. It was reasonable to say that this cub of the steel spine beast should have a good relationship with Chu Yu. But now, for some reason, it suddenly ran out alone. However, Chu Yu and the adult steel spine beast in the cave didn't move at all. This was simply too strange. No, I have to go down and take a look. Elder Huafeng said as he was about to go over. Elder Yu immediately pulled him back. Wait a little longer. What are you waiting for? Elder Huafeng was sweating profusely. If something really happens to that kid, it will be too late if we go over now. Let go of me. Elder Huafeng was struggling when he suddenly saw Elder Yu's expression change drastically. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly turned around to look. When he saw it, he couldn't help but gasp. Why did a divine beast come over at this time? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1312. Xianxia. It was rumored that this kind of magical beast was fierce and extremely aggressive. But was it true? Elder Huafeng widened his eyes and stared at the rapidly approaching Xianxia as he asked anxiously. Elder Yu pursed his lips and said calmly, "Don't worry. Although this Xianxia is a divine beast, with our strength, it's not a problem to deal with it." His voice stopped abruptly. Because after that Xianxia, there were actually a few more that flew over in succession. They were extremely fast and had already flown past in the blink of an eye. They were heading towards the mountain where Chu Yu was. At a rough glance, there were as many as 5 or 6 of them. Elder Huafeng tugged at Elder Yu's sleeve. "Do you still mean what you said just now? They are so small. The 2 of us should be able to deal with 5 or 6 of them, right?" Even he felt a little guilty when he said this. Xianxia's body was very small, but it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, it was the kind that was notorious for being fierce. To be able to win such an evaluation from so many magical beasts, one could see how strong its combat strength was. Elder Yu was also dumbfounded. In the entire beast park, there were only about 10 Xianxia in total. Half of them had come all of a sudden. Even on the night when Chu Yu was preparing to break through, there weren't so many of them. He frowned and his expression was solemn. "Don't worry, it should be, look." Before he could finish speaking, Elder Huafeng exclaimed again and pointed to a certain place below. "That's a silver ear-spotted beast?" Elder Yu took a closer look and saw that it was indeed a silver ear-spotted beast whose ears had been cut off. The cuts on the ears were neat and flat. It didn't look like they were bitten off by other magical beasts. Instead, it looked more like they were cut off by some kind of sharp weapon. With its ears cut off, its strength will be greatly reduced. Why is it here at this time? Elder Yu couldn't understand. But soon he didn't have time to think about this. Because behind the silver ear-spotted beast, there were actually more magical beasts approaching. Nightmare Beast, 9 Lightning Giant Ape, Golden Eye Ice Bat. Looking at the figures that appeared one after another, Elder Yu's voice gradually trembled. Why are there so many divine beasts all of a sudden? From the looks of it, they were all targeting Chu Yu. What kind of sin did this kid commit? The previously calm and collected Elder Yu finally couldn't help but explode. Chu Yu wasn't preparing to break through this time. They had waited outside for so long, but they didn't even notice any movement. Why did it attract so many divine beasts? Elder Huafeng grabbed him by the collar. Yu, didn't you just say there was no problem? What was going on now?" I don't know either. I shouldn't have listened to you. We should have just gone over there." Elder Huafeng gave him a hard shove. "Now that so many divine beasts have come, it will be difficult to pass. If the 2 of them work together, they might be able to deal with a few of them. But now, the number had far exceeded their expectations. Even if they tried to stop him, it would be futile. Wanjing only has this one precious disciple. Furthermore, Chu Yu and Rong Xiu have an extraordinary relationship. If something were to happen to him, Elder Huafeng's throat was dry. What do you think we should do in this situation?" Elder Yu looked conflicted. At this moment, his gaze suddenly froze. Wait. Behind the group of divine beasts, a familiar figure suddenly ran forward. It was the steel spine beast cub that had left in a hurry just now. At this moment, it had already run in front of the divine beasts and ran back to the cave at its fastest speed. Throughout the entire process, none of the divine beasts stopped it. In fact, there was even a faint feeling that it was following him as he walked up. "What's wrong?" Elder Huafeng saw that his expression was not right and became even more worried. "Look," Elder Yu raised his hand and said in disbelief. "They seem to be following that steel spine beast cub." "How is that possible?" Elder Huafeng subconsciously refuted. Although he didn't come to this beast park often, he knew that the steel spine beast was a 9th-grade divine beast when it was a cub. It was already good enough that these divine beasts didn't bully it. How could they follow it? But then he realized that what Elder Yu said seemed to be true. These divine beasts usually minded their own business. They each occupied their own mountains and didn't interact much. However, at this moment, they had gathered together, which was rare. Moreover, they didn't fight with each other. Instead, they were all heading in the same direction. He turned his gaze and held his breath. They seemed to be following that steel spine beast cub to the cave halfway up the mountain. Chuyu's? What is he doing? Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. His face was filled with shock. He never dreamed that he would be able to see such a scene in his lifetime. Elder Yu didn't say a word. The expression on his face seemed to be frozen. Only his pair of surging eyes revealed that his mood was not calm at this moment. Could it be that Chuyu was really planning to break through again? But if that was the case, these divine beasts would definitely not have such a reaction. They were silent and tacitly heading in the same direction. It was as if they were carrying out some kind of order. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Elder Yu suppressed it. It was too ridiculous. How was this possible? Only those two ancient divine beasts could summon all the divine beasts in the world. And a huge roar suddenly came out from the cave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1313. With this loud noise, a vast and turbulent power erupted from the cave. The mountain peak shook violently as if it was in danger of collapsing at any time. The two elders' hearts were in a mess. Then, they saw that the divine beasts did not leave after hearing the noise. Instead, they suddenly sped up and rushed into the cave. The first to arrive was Emotianke. A few Emotianke glanced at Dumpling lying on the ground and felt the pressure on her body. They all took a step back subconsciously. Chu Luiwe looked up and glanced at them. Immediately after, the Emo sky sparrows quickly flew forward and lined up in a row. One of them, Chu Luiwe, looked quite familiar. Looking at the fluffy wing that had just grown out, she narrowed her eyes. You came quite quickly. The few Emotianke were angry but did not dare to say anything. They straightened their small bodies. Chu Luiwe raised her hand. A part of the power was transferred to them. The ones behind, come one by one. Chu Luiwe said lightly. The few magical beasts that had just entered were stunned. They looked at each other and did not know who would go first. Chu Luiwe raised her eyebrows slightly and was a little impatient. Just follow the order of the fight with me before. Oh, it's the order of being beaten. The few of them quickly understood and hurriedly lined up. Chu Luiwe slowly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and showed a rare satisfied smile. In fact, she was almost unable to hold on at this time. She was just relying on the last of her willpower to hold on. She raised her finger and another part of the power was shared. This time, the pressure on Chu Luiwe and Aqiong was reduced by a lot. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. Her voice was a little hoarse and lazy. Very good. As obedient as before. All the divine beasts entered the cave one after another. The surroundings seemed to have returned to peace. Except for the energy that was spreading and getting stronger and stronger, everything seemed to be the same as before. The two elders stood in the air in a daze, completely confused by what was happening in front of them. These divine beasts went in just like that? Elder Hua Feng swallowed hard. Still waiting in line. What was wrong with this world? You, say something. Elder Yu rubbed his forehead. What do you want me to say? You have stayed in this beast park for such a long time, you should know more than me, right? What was going on? Elder Hua Feng was both shocked and worried. Elder Yu glanced at him and faintly said, Do I look like I know? But Chu Yu is still inside. Rather than worrying about him, why don't you worry about the demonic beasts in the beast park? Elder Yu took a deep breath. He had worked so hard to take care of the beast park, but in the end, he was worse off than a brat. Elder Hua Feng frowned. This power that is constantly spreading doesn't seem to belong to Chu Yu. If he didn't guess wrongly, perhaps it was the aura of the red-tailed phoenix? Not bad. Elder Yu looked at the mountain peak. His contracted divine beast, the red-tailed red phoenix, is probably undergoing the awakening of its bloodline power. And, he paused and suddenly turned around to ask, who else knows that Chu Yu is here? Let me think. Other than Zhuo Sheng and Luo Yanming, there shouldn't be anyone else. Elder Hua Feng hesitated and said, but I don't know if anyone else saw him on the way. Try your best to block the news. If anyone talks about it, just say that he went over there. Elder Yu pointed to a few mountain peaks outside the Beast Park. With you as a witness, I don't think anyone will doubt it. Elder Hua Feng nodded and couldn't help but ask, I know that coming to the Beast Park isn't a good thing in the academy, but I don't think that's the only reason, right? Elder Yu nodded. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. It's not good to be too ostentatious. What do you mean? Let's wait and see. Chu Yu's red-tailed phoenix is probably going to cause a big commotion this time. The calm before the storm always made people panic. Time slowly passed. Gradually, the divine beasts that had entered the cave earlier began to come out one after another. From the outside, there was almost no difference from when they entered. After they came out, they didn't stay for long and quickly dispersed. However, as this process progressed, the power that was constantly spreading in the cave was also rapidly increasing. Several cracks had already appeared on the mountain peak. The entire mountain was on the verge of collapse. Some mountain rocks began to roll down. Everything seemed to be indicating that a shocking change was about to happen. With the help of these divine beasts, Chu Luiwei felt much more relaxed. She had even gradually gotten used to the painful tearing feeling. The force in her body was almost exhausted. Chu Luiwei tried her best to help Dumplings circulate her strength while trying her best to heal the injuries in her body. Suddenly, Dumplings' wings moved. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the water droplet in her dantian seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and slowly began to spin. Surging power surged out one after another. Almost at the same time, a ball of red flames suddenly erupted from Dumplings' body. Bang! The raging flames completely enveloped her body. The power that had been hovering around its body was rapidly converging into its body. Chu Luiwei's eyes lit up. Dumpling was going to wake up. However, at this moment, the divine beasts next to her suddenly seemed to have sensed a terrifying existence and retreated one after another. They looked at Dumpling with undisguised deep fear and awe. Chu Luiwei seemed to have sensed something and looked at Dumpling. A cluster of golden flames suddenly burst out. Digression, round it up. That's it for today. Tomorrow is still a day of hard work. The update time may not be too stable, so everyone can read it together later. Walk past with a proud face. Today is a February that will be praised. Dance with the small ticket. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 13-14. This golden flame was extremely dazzling. The moment it appeared, it lit up the whole cave instantly. An indescribably vast aura spread out from it. Chu Luiwei was shocked, and the water droplets in her body rotated faster unconsciously. The force in her body began to rotate at a more unusual speed. Woo! A low whimper came. It was the evil beasts around. At this time, they all bent down and looked at the burning flame, trembling. That was the absolute pressure from the bloodline. It was a complete suppression. Even Ah Qiong stood up with difficulty. She took Tao Tao back a few steps. In the cave, the brilliant fire was shining, as if it was data. In the middle, there was a person and a beast. Chu Luiwei stared at the golden flame in the red flame. As time went by, the surrounding red flames seemed to gradually turn into golden flame. The light became brighter and brighter. Chu Luiwei said, "You all go out first." Hearing her words, many evil beasts nodded hurriedly and retreated. "Qiong, you and Tao Tao also go outside to guard first." Qiong looked at her hesitantly, but finally she obeyed her order and left with Tao Tao. The injuries on its body were quite serious. Its skin and flesh were chapped, and blood was flowing out. Many of its wounds looked like they were badly mutilated. It could be seen that it had suffered a terrible attack just now. Wherever they passed, There was a line of blood with different depths on the ground. After they all left, Chu Liyue took back her sight and looked at Dumpling. Dumpling's eyelids moved as if she was aware of her gaze. Chu Liyue smiled in a low voice. You have to pay off the debt you owe when you go out. Dumpling didn't say anything, but the flame on her body burned more fiercely. The two elders stared at the mountain peak nervously. More and more divine beasts came out. But after they reached the foot of the mountain, they didn't leave. Instead, they stopped and looked at the mountainside together, as if they were waiting for something. What are they doing? Elder Hua Feng was confused by this scene. The ones from before all scattered. Why are they not leaving now that they've come out? Elder Yu didn't say anything, but his expression became even more serious. The guess in his heart might really come true. More and more cracks appeared on the mountain peak. Trees collapsed one after another, and rocks rolled down the mountain. The surrounding heaven and earth energy began to surge toward them. In the end, it formed a huge energy vortex, which looked very shocking. Dark clouds rolled and the wind howled. Anyone could see that the mountain was about to be destroyed. Furthermore, something even more shocking must have happened. A storm was brewing. Elder Hua Feng gradually felt a trace of uneasiness. He pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything else. The surroundings quieted down. It was like an undercurrent on the surface of the water, ready to erupt at any time. A day passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, Zhuosheng paced back and forth in front of the house with an anxious expression. Luo Yanming, who was sitting in the room, finally couldn't help but say, Zhuosheng, you're making me dizzy. Can't you sit down and wait? I can't sit down. Zhuosheng scratched his head with a frustrated expression. Tell me, where did Chu Yu and Elder Hua Feng go? It's been half a day, but we haven't seen a single person. Sigh, if only we had caught up in time. Luo Yanming looked at him suspiciously. Do you have some misunderstanding about your own strength, or do you think too highly of me? Do you actually think that the two of us can catch up to my master? The situation had happened suddenly. After Chu Yu came out of Nineheng Mountain, he quickly disappeared. Elder Hua Feng followed closely behind, and he didn't even have time to say a word before running away. Originally, Zhuosheng and Luo Yanming had planned to follow them, but they lost them not long after. Helpless, the two of them could only choose to return first. They planned to wait for Elder Hua Feng and the others to return before asking in detail what was going on. Although they were worried about Chu Yu, Elder Hua Feng was a respected elder of the academy after all. With him around, they could feel a little more at ease. Who knew that this wait would last for nearly a day? Elder Hua Feng and Chu Yu didn't show any signs of returning. The two of them didn't dare to go outside and ask around, so they could only continue to scratch their heads and wait. Hearing this, Zhuosheng was a little disheartened. It's strange. You said that Elder Hua Feng's strength is tyrannical, so it's normal that we can't catch up. But why is Chu Yu's speed so fast? At that time, he hadn't seen anything clearly and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. It's not bad that he's a 9th grade celestial physician now, but his cultivation level isn't as high as mine. How can he be faster than me? Zhuosheng really couldn't understand. Moreover, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but when he rushed past me, I felt that his aura was not much worse than mine. He was more conservative with his words. In fact, when he thought about it later, he even felt that he was slightly inferior to the other party. But Chu Yu was indeed only a 7th-rank warrior some time ago, which everyone saw with their own eyes. Even if he was a genius, it was impossible to break through so much in such a short period of time, right? What's so strange about this? Compared to Zhuosheng's shock and suspicion, Luo Yanming was much calmer. He smiled. Do you really think that he's only talented as a celestial physician? The corner of Zhuosheng's eyes twitched. What do you mean by that? Luo Yanming's lips moved, and in the end he only said, how can he be an ordinary person to be valued so highly by senior brother Rongxiu? I just feel that what he has displayed now is not his true strength. That's true. Chu Yu has always been unpredictable, and he has hidden his strength deeply. Zhuosheng nodded in agreement and said again, however, I still hope that nothing will happen to him this time. It's fine as long as he's fine. Let's wait and see, Luo Yanming said. At Beast Park, Elder Huafeng and Zhuixing were still waiting. The surroundings had already darkened, and only on the mountain peak, a bright glow shone out from the cave. Moreover, as time passed, the light became more and more dazzling. Suddenly, the huge energy vortex stopped spinning, and then swept away with the dark clouds in the sky. Kacha! An exceptionally clear sound of the mountain rocks shattering could be heard. In the quiet mountain forest, it was exceptionally clear. The two elders looked at each other and saw the nervousness in each other's eyes. Boom! The mountain peak, which had long been on the verge of collapse, exploded from the inside out by a terrifying force. A thick reddish gold flame that seemed to be unable to dissipate soared into the sky. Amidst it, an astonishing aura that seemed to have come from ancient times swept across the entire sky in a grandiose manner. A pair of huge wings suddenly spread out. Screech. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:15. Clear. Melodious. Majestic. A clear cry shook the heavens and earth. Countless magical beasts that had been waiting quietly in the surroundings for a day heard this command. Their spirits were lifted, and they immediately let out a cry in unison. In his voice, there was neither the arrogance nor the ruthlessness of a divine beast. There was only complete submission and reverence. In the next moment, these magical beasts actually knelt on the ground. They were trembling with fear, but they were also filled with piety and reverence. That was admiration and reverence for the most noble bloodline in the world. Such a scene truly shocked the two elders both physically and mentally. Elder Huafeng widened his eyes in shock. That is, an absurd and daring conjecture flashed through his mind. But because it was too unbelievable, he found it difficult to say those words. Red gold flames. In the world, only one kind of magical beast had such a flame. Even though Elder Yu had already guessed this result in his heart, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. He took a deep breath and seemed to be able to smell the unique smell of the flames burning fiercely in the air. It was as if everything was going to be burned to ashes. That is, the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Every word seemed to carry a great weight, like a stone crashing down, causing people's hearts to tremble. How can it be? Elder Huafeng's expression was dull as he muttered in disbelief. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix hasn't appeared on the continent for 3,000 years, but now, that was Chu Yu's contracted magical beast. This fact constantly impacted Elder Huafeng's heart, causing him to feel a little dizzy. Elder Yu raised his head and looked at the red gold figure in the black night sky with a complicated expression. If he hadn't seen all of this with his own eyes, he would have thought that this was a dreamlike environment. The red-tailed phoenix originally had the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix flowing in its body. Among the many magical beasts in the world, it is the most likely existence to break through the shackles and become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. However, it is very difficult to achieve this step. With generations of inheritance, the current red-tailed phoenix's bloodline power is thin. Logically speaking, there is almost no such possibility, but Chu Yu's contracted magical beast did it. How could this not be shocking? No wonder those magical beasts were so obedient just now. So, it was because they had already predicted the birth of this crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Elder Huafeng seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and a look of understanding appeared on his face. Apart from the two ancient godly beasts, who else would have such terrifying charisma? In the next moment, a slender figure leaped up from below. It was Chu Luiwei whom the two elders had been waiting for a long time. At this moment, her clothes were already stained with bloodstains. Her complexion was also incomparably pale. She appeared to be in a very sorry state. However, only that pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, flickering with dazzling light. Sensing her arrival, the crimson gold celestial phoenix in the sky, which was being worshipped by many demonic beasts, looked down. Then, it flapped its wings and flew towards Chu Luiwe. In the black night sky, a reddish-gold arc was drawn. In the next second, it was already in front of Chu Luiwe. A human and a beast stood facing each other. Chu Luiwe's originally tall figure instantly appeared much smaller in the contrast of the crimson-gold celestial phoenix. However, for some reason she stood there quietly. Her aura did not lose to the crimson-gold celestial phoenix. Under such a contrast, she still did not lose her brilliance. Dumpling. Chu Luiwe looked at Dumpling, who had completely changed her appearance in front of her. Something seemed to be surging between her chest and abdomen. Her heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. She had already guessed that Dumpling might break through this bloodline awakening, but she did not expect that it would directly step into the threshold of the crimson-gold celestial phoenix. No wonder it did not wake up for so long. It turned out that it was brewing such a big move. It was not in vain that she spent so much effort to help it. She carefully sized up Dumpling. Its size was not much different from before, but the red feathers all over its body had turned into a reddish-gold color. Its 2 claws were snow-white, but its eyes had turned into a rich black color. At a glance, it was sparkling and moist, but also seemed bottomless. Only occasionally, when its eyes moved, one could catch a glimpse of a gorgeous light flashing by. From this pair of eyes, Chu Luiwe could clearly see her own reflection. Dumpling lowered its head and intimately rubbed against her face gently. Its body was burning with reddish-gold flames, but when Chu Luiwe touched these flames, she did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she felt that they naturally merged together. Of course, this was her contracted magical beast. Feeling the heat from Dumpling's body, the soft feathers, and the strong attachment and intimacy, Chu Luiwe could not help but take a step forward and hug Dumpling's neck tightly with both hands. Fortunately, Tuanzi was safe and sound by her side in the end. Looking at the woman and beast hugging together, the many divine beasts below all quieted down. Looking at Chu Luiwe, there was only reverence and awe in their eyes. Previously, they were afraid of being beaten by her and did not dare to say anything, but now, they did not even dare to be angry. She had contracted with one of the 2 most noble ancient divine beasts in the world, and could be considered to be above all other beasts. What was there to make a fuss about? In the future, they could only be obedient. This kid, I'm afraid that his future will be limitless. Elder Yu still could not completely calm down, but he finally accepted everything that had happened. Looking at how close Chu Luiwe and Dumpling were, he could not help but laugh bitterly. I knew that he was powerful, but I did not expect that he would encounter such an opportunity. Luck and strength, neither could be missing. Previously, when he heard that Chu Yu had accidentally obtained the Red Cloud Sword, he was somewhat unconvinced. There were so many elders and so many outstanding students in the academy, but in the end, a young man who had just arrived at the academy took advantage of it. No matter who heard it, it was impossible for them to be completely calm. But today he finally understood. What was a Red Cloud Sword? A contracted magical beast breaking through and becoming an ancient divine beast in one fell swoop. This was what made people speechless. After all, in the entire continent, there were not many venerable artifacts like the Red Cloud Sword. But how many magical beasts were there in the world? Just in their Lingxiao College alone, he had seen 4 or 5 red-tailed phoenixes over the years. Not to mention the entire Divine Ruins world. There would definitely be more discussions. But Chu Yu's beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How could this be reasonable? Phew, you're right. Elder Hua Feng let out a long breath, rubbed his face hard, and sighed sincerely. Fortunately, I don't have a contract with a magical beast. Otherwise, I would be angered to death when I saw this scene. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1316. Chu Luiwe touched Dumpling and then let go, raising his chin at the many magical beasts below. In order to help you just now, they all put in a lot of effort. The magical beasts who were suddenly praised immediately perked up, but their expressions were somewhat perturbed and nervous. Put in effort? No. Of course. To be able to witness the birth of the ancient crimson gold heavenly phoenix with their own eyes was already a blessing of 3 lifetimes. How would they dare to ask for more? In the beginning, they came here indeed because of Chu Luiyue. But now, it was absolutely not the case. That little bit complaint towards Chu Luiyue when they came had already vanished into thin air at this time, and they even faintly felt some gratitude. To magical beasts, the bloodline hierarchy was very strict. Not to mention this help, even if they were asked to give up their lives, they would absolutely have no way to complain. This was the majesty of the ancient divine beasts. Dumpling followed Chu Luiyue's line of sight and looked down. Whoosh, with a flap of its wings, a crimson gold flame suddenly flew out, drawing a beautiful arc in midair. Then, with a bang, that flame shattered into countless sparks and scattered in all directions. These sparks landed on many magical beasts, and upon contact, they quickly melted away. Immediately after, the injuries on their bodies began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their injuries were originally caused by Dumpling's awakening of the bloodline power, so at this time, it could be said that the problem had been solved fundamentally, so the effect was exceptionally good. Many magical beasts were all overwhelmed by the favor, and another wave of respectful kneeling and thanking. To be able to help the crimson gold heavenly phoenix break through and be nourished by its power was extremely rare to them, and it was also quite beneficial, so they were naturally full of gratitude. Even when they looked at Chu Luiyue, their eyes were especially docile and respectful. Dumpling's action was obviously to tell them who was the one who had the final say. The divine beasts that appeared here were not stupid, so naturally, they went with the flow. Screech! Dumpling let out a clear cry again. Many magical beasts gradually began to retreat. In a short while, the magical beasts around the mountain all dispersed. Everything seemed to have finally returned to normal. Dumpling's body flashed and turned back into a small one. Compared to before, it looked much more exquisite and beautiful. It blinked and plunged into Chu Luiyue's arms. Chu Luiyue hugged it tightly and couldn't help but laugh, her eyes curved. Dumpling's little head rubbed against her shoulder affectionately. A clear and crisp sound entered his ears. Chu Luiyue suddenly froze. Dumpling's voice? Ayu, I miss you so much. Chu Yu. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to say a few more words to Dumpling, a familiar voice suddenly came from the side. She raised her head and smiled. Greetings, elders. Elder Hua Feng looked at Dumpling, who was in Chu Luiyue's arms, with curiosity and shock in his eyes. After all, this was the first time he had seen a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with his own eyes. Especially, it was contracted with a human. Chu Yu, how are you feeling? Elder Yu was still relatively calm. Looking at Chu Luiyue's sorry state, he asked with concern. Chu Luiyue smiled and said, Elder, don't worry. I'm fine. Although she had suffered some injuries before, after Dumpling broke through, these injuries had been rapidly healing due to the contract. She even felt that she seemed to be stronger than before. That's good. Elder Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she was fine, everything else was fine. Only then did his gaze fall on Dumpling. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke cautiously. I haven't congratulated you yet. Your contracted divine beast has broken through. Thank you, Elder. Chu Luiyue patted Dumpling gently and placed it on his shoulder. His expression became much more serious. Actually, this student has something that I want to ask the 2 elders. Speak. Can I trouble the 2 elders to keep today's matter a secret for me for the time being? The 2 elders looked at each other. Now that he thought of asking this, don't worry, this is a matter of great importance. Unless you take the initiative to say it yourself, the 2 of us will never reveal a single word about this matter. Elder Yu said word by word. Elder Hua Feng also nodded quickly. That's right. We definitely won't say anything. What a joke. If this matter were to spread, wouldn't this child be thrown out as a target? If he was a God-rank expert now, he wouldn't say anything. Unfortunately, he was only at rank 8. Although his combat strength was stronger than an ordinary rank 8 warrior, he was still only at rank 8. Under such circumstances, it was better to keep a low profile. As for Zhuosheng and Luo Yanming, I'll talk to them later. I definitely won't doubt you. As Elder Hua Feng spoke, he felt that this was nonsense. Who would suspect that Chu Yu's magical beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Even if they were given 10 times more imagination, it wouldn't be enough. If he wasn't here and saw everything clearly from the beginning to the end, his first reaction when he heard this would definitely be to think that it was a joke. Hearing what they said, Chu Luiwei felt much more at ease. The words of these two elders were still credible. Before she was strong enough, it was better to not expose these bedfellows as much as possible. It was a pity that she wouldn't be able to summon Dumpling out at will for a while. Thank you, Elder. Chu Luiwei bowed politely to the two of them again. Elder Yu looked at her, then at Dumpling and suddenly asked, "How did your red-tailed phoenix suddenly break through?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1317. It was true that the red-tailed red phoenix possessed the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, but it was not so simple to cross this threshold. Elder Yu had seen many red-tailed red phoenixes over the years, so he was especially curious when he encountered such a situation. There should be some kind of opportunity, right? Elder Yu crossed his arms and tapped his fingers lightly on his arm. After all, even if it has a strong bloodline power in its body, it will take a lot of energy to activate it. And this was definitely not something a rank 8 warrior cultivator could do. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, she had the illusion that there was nowhere to hide. Elder Yu was indeed experienced in guarding the beast park for many years, and he was also very knowledgeable in this aspect. Otherwise, he would definitely not ask such a question. That's right. Chu Yu, the origin of your magical beast should be very unusual, right? Or perhaps it has encountered some kind of opportunity. Elder Hua Feng also interrupted and asked a few questions. He had experienced a lot with Chu Luiwei, and even looking at her contracted magical beast, he felt that it was the chosen one and was very lucky. Chu Luiwei paused, and the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile. Dumpling is a magical beast that I accidentally contracted a long time ago. As far as I know, it shouldn't have any amazing background. It's just an ordinary red-tailed red phoenix. As for why it broke through this time, she blinked her eyes and her expression was a little helpless. I'm not very sure either. However, it has been sleeping during this period of time, and no matter how I called it, it wouldn't wake up. When it suddenly woke up today, I realized that something was wrong, so I hurriedly brought it over. Elder Yu pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. That's it. The reason why it fell into a deep sleep for a long time should be to activate its bloodline power, and it only erupted today and directly broke through. Chu Yu, your luck is really unparalleled. This simply made people lose the energy to be envious. The heavens were unfair to begin with. Some people worked hard and got nothing, but some could always get the right opportunity at the right time. Of course, in Elder Yu's opinion, Chu Luiwei did not completely rely on luck to have everything she had today. If it was someone else who had experienced the few crises she had faced, they would have been beaten to a pulp, and they might not even be able to keep their lives. Being able to grasp luck was also a kind of strength. Chu Luiwei smiled. Elder Huafeng looked at her pale face and felt his heart ache. All right. If you have anything to say, you can say it tomorrow. Chu Yu, you've suffered quite a bit today. Come back with me and recuperate first. Look at this small body, don't have any side effects. Chu Yu's heart? Okay. Elder Huafeng personally sent Chu Luiwei back to Mount Jiuheng. After ascertaining that her body was indeed fine, he gave her a few more words of advice, telling her not to worry, and then left. As Yu Lin, he read White Jade. After watching Elder Huafeng leave, Chu Luiwei returned to her room. A look of contemplation flashed across her eyes. The two elders said that they would help keep it a secret. She firmly believed in this without a doubt. However, they might not be unsuspicious and curious about her. After returning, as long as they thought about it carefully, they would definitely be able to think of many unreasonable things. For example, why was the first place she went to when she was in trouble? For example, why was she able to summon so many magical beasts when she was in danger? Not to mention, Dumpling's breakthrough was so sudden. She did not see anything today, but there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. No one could guarantee that one day in the future, Dumpling would break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with the help of the Tianlei in the Thousand Wine Mountain Spring. She could use some answers to these questions for the time being, but what about in the future? Chu Luiwei did not feel that she could hide it forever. However, she had no choice but to bring Dumpling to the Beast Park today. Under those circumstances, she had to rely on the help of other divine beasts to resolve the crisis. Later on, the facts also proved that if she really relied on the help of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she might not be able to survive. This was the best outcome. Chu Luiwei shook her head and suppressed all these noisy thoughts. She changed out of her dirty clothes and took a hot bath, which was rare for her. She even put some medicinal herbs in the water to nurse her injuries. An hour later, she finally tidied up and changed into a clean and comfortable set of clothes. Only then did she feel alive. Fortunately, the injuries on her body were not serious. Chu Luiwei used some medicine herself and would be able to recover after a period of time. When she came out, Dumpling, who had been waiting for a long time, could not help but pounce on her. However, this time, Chu Luiwei directly raised her hand and grabbed it. She grabbed Dumpling's wings and lifted it up. The human and the beast looked at each other. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows and smiled. Dumpling. This smile made Dumpling shiver unconsciously. For a moment, it actually had the urge to run away. Unfortunately, Chu Luiwei grabbed its wings and it could not move at all. Therefore, it could only look at Chu Luiwei. Dumpling, I have a few things to ask you. You must tell me honestly, okay? Tuanzi blinked her eyes and nodded hard. Chu Luiwei was quite satisfied with its attitude and directly asked, how much do you remember from the past? Dumpling was stunned for a moment. Chu Luiwei's smile deepened and she reminded, take note, when I said, the past, I was referring to the last time I came to the world of God. If I remember correctly, you came with me at that time, right? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 13:18. The room instantly fell silent. Dumpling looked away guiltily. Chu Luiwei pinched its little head and turned back. Didn't you say that you missed me very much? Don't you want to talk and reminisce about the past? It just so happened that Dumpling could speak directly after breaking through, which saved her a lot of trouble. Dumpling turned its head to the other side again. This time, Chu Luiwei did not care about it anymore. Instead, she let go of her hand and turned to walk towards the bedroom. Since you don't want to talk about it now, then don't. It won't be too late to come back when you want to talk about it. As she spoke, she actually went straight into the room and went to bed to rest. Dumpling, who was left behind, was dumbfounded. It hurriedly looked at Chu Luiwei nervously, only to see that she had already laid down, as if she was really going to sleep. The lights went out and the room darkened. Only the faint moonlight seeped in like water, outlining the outline of the room. Dumpling stayed where it was for a long time, its expression extremely conflicted. Just as it was about to step out with one paw, it quickly retracted it. Dumpling went back and forth several times, tormenting it quite a bit. After struggling for a while, it finally made up its mind and flew towards Chu Luiwei. Ah, you! Dumpling nestled beside Chu Luiwei's pillow and called out carefully. Chu Luiwei turned to look at it. You want to talk about it? Dumpling's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle, but in the end, it nodded its little head in embarrassment. Chu Luiwei sat up. Then let's begin. After settling Chu Luiwei down, Elder Hua Feng returned to his residence, only to find that Luo Yanming and Zhuoxing were still waiting for him. Master! Elder Hua Feng. Seeing Elder Hua Feng's familiar figure, the two of them, who had been waiting for so long, cried out in surprise. Zhuoxing moved even faster and rushed over with a few leaps. Elder, you're finally back. How is Chu Yu now? Are the two of you all right? A series of questions bombarded Elder Hua Feng's head until it began to ache. But when he thought about how both of them had good intentions, he couldn't bear to get angry. Don't worry, that kid is fine. Although his body was slightly injured, he had obtained a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. If this was not considered good, then no one in this world could live a good life. Seeing Elder Huafeng's reaction, Zhuosheng and Zhuosheng finally relaxed. That's good, that's good. Elder, please rest first. Let's go take a look at Chuyu. As Zhuosheng spoke, he wanted to pull Luo Yanming away. Wait! Elder Huafeng shouted at the two of them. Elder Huafeng coughed when he saw their puzzled gazes. It's already so late. He should be asleep by the time he gets back. It's not appropriate for you to go now. The two of them thought about it and agreed. Then let's go tomorrow, Luo Yanming said to Zhuosheng. Zhuosheng nodded. Only then did Elder Huafeng relax. By tomorrow, everything should be more or less recovered. That's good too. Alright, there's one more thing. Try not to make a fuss about what happened today. Elder Huafeng hesitated for a moment. Recently, there have been quite a lot of rumors about him in the academy. Let's not add to this at this time. Give him some time to quietly recuperate. The two of them didn't doubt him and agreed. Yes. The next day, just as dawn broke, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot, and there was a faint bruise under her eyes. It was obvious that she didn't sleep well last night. She turned her head and looked to the side. Dumpling was nestled beside her. Hearing the movement, Dumpling immediately woke up. Meeting Chu Luiyue's gaze, Dumpling blinked in a daze, leaned over, and rubbed against Chu Luiyue's cheek. Chu Luiyue's heart instantly softened. She gently rubbed Dumpling's head. All right, it's time to get up. Dumpling glanced at her. Isn't you angry with me? Chu Luiyue paused and smiled. What's there to be angry about? Didn't you already tell me everything you know? Tuanzi lowered its head and rubbed its head against her palm. Suddenly, two familiar voices came from outside. Chu Luiyue stood up and carried Dumpling up. All right, you've just broken through, so you should rest well first. You shouldn't be able to come out for a while, understand? Dumpling nodded and disappeared. Chu Luiyue then walked outside. The ones who came to visit her were Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng. Even though Chu Luiyue didn't sleep well the entire night, her injuries had recovered quite a bit. Hence, at a glance, other than making others think that she didn't sleep well, there wouldn't be any other problems. Seeing Chu Luiyue like this, the two of them were relieved. It's fine as long as you're fine. Yesterday, Zhuosheng was halfway through his words when he suddenly remembered that he had promised not to talk about this matter, so he quickly shut up. Luo Yanming calmly changed the topic. By the way, Chuyu, today is the Academy's open day. Do you want to go out for a walk? The so-called open day was actually a holiday that Soaring Heaven Academy held once every 3 months. It usually lasted for 3 days. During these 3 days, students could leave the academy, and the elders wouldn't ask any questions. Many students would take advantage of this time to go out and relax. For those who were closer, they could make a trip home. As for the rest, they would wander around Fangzhou City. Zhuosheng immediately became interested. That's right. We've been in the academy for so long, but we haven't gone out yet. Chuyu, let's go together. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1319. Fangzhou City was right next to Lingxiao College. Countless cultivators from all over the world who wanted to enter Lingxiao College were gathered here. In many people's eyes, Fangzhou City was a transit station to enter Lingxiao College. But in reality, it was far more than that. Because it was not under the jurisdiction of any faction, people from all walks of life gathered in Fangzhou City. It could be said that good and bad people mixed together. But because they were afraid of Lingxiao College, when they were in the city, they were more polite and honest to each other. But if you stayed in Fangzhou City for a long time and learned more about it, you would find that this place was far more exciting than you could imagine. Even for the students of the Spirit Firmament Academy, Fang State City was a place that held great allure. Often, some students would enter the city for activities. Some were there to buy things, some were there to learn from others, and some were there to do anything else they wanted to do. There was a high degree of freedom, and there was a college elder guarding it. Many students of Lingxiao College liked to go to Fangzhou City. Chu Luiwei originally wanted to refuse, but seeing that the two of them were inviting her warmly, she couldn't bear to refuse and nodded. Okay. She had experienced too many things during this period of time. It was a good opportunity for her to relax and change her mood. After discussing, the three of them immediately went straight to the barrier. Along the way, Chu Luiwei saw that many people were going in the same direction as them. Obviously, they were also going out. It could be seen how precious these 3 days were to the students. In the college, many people were always in a state of extreme tension. After a long time, it was inevitable that they would be tired. Of course, everyone was happy to have these 3 days to go out and wander. When they reached the entrance of the college, Chu Luiwei saw at a glance that there were 2 elders guarding it together. And the students who wanted to go out had already formed a line. Chu Luiwei and the other 2 stood at the end of the line obediently. Fortunately, the elders were very efficient. As long as the students took out their black jade tokens and placed them on the barrier, the elders would quickly respond and open the barrier to let them go. Soon, it was Chu Luiwei and the other 2's turn. Luo Yanming and Zhuo Sheng passed one after another. Finally, it was Chu Luiwei's turn. Chu Yu. The 2 elders looked up and recognized Chu Luiwei at the same time. Then, they quickly became vigilant. They both stepped forward and blocked Chu Luiwei's path. What do you want? Chu Luiwei blushed with shame when he saw the 2 elders acting like they were facing a formidable enemy. He immediately took out his black jade token. Elders, please don't misunderstand. I just want to go out for a stroll. I don't want to do anything else. As he spoke, he passed the black jade token over. The 2 elders looked at each other suspiciously. One of them took the item and placed it on the barrier. A stream of light flashed from the barrier and then quickly disappeared. That seems to be the case. Only then did the 2 elders feel a little relieved. They sized up Chu Luiwei a few more times before letting him go. Let's go. Only then was Chu Luiwei able to cross the barrier and meet up with the 2 in front of him. Ha! Chu Yu, the elders are all afraid of you now. Zhuo Xing laughed mercilessly. Who told you to always commit crimes in the past? Now you know how powerful you are. You almost couldn't even get out of the academy's gate. Chu Luiwei rubbed his nose. Based on the frequency of him causing trouble, it seemed quite normal for the elders to be so wary of him. It's rare for us to come out. Let's not waste time here. Chu Luiwei looked ahead. He could vaguely see a city. It was simple and majestic and extraordinarily lively. It was Fangzhou City. Let's go. This was the second time Chu Luiwei came to Fangzhou City. The last time he came was a few months ago. At that time, he was preparing to enter Lingxiao College. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, so much time had passed. Walking on the bustling streets, Chu Luiwei suddenly had the illusion that a lifetime had passed. During this period of time, he had basically stayed in the academy and almost forgot what it was like outside. At a glance, he could see many young cultivators. It seemed that most of them were preparing to enter Lingxiao College. Chu Luiwei and the other 2 walked on the streets and attracted the attention of many people. Although they came out in a hurry and were dressed casually, the aura they exuded was indeed quite eye-catching. Zhuo Sheng and Luo Yanming were both from genuine first-class aristocratic families. Their every move carried the aura of aristocratic families. As for Chu Luiwei, although his face could only be considered delicate, his aura was clean and elegant. He didn't pale in comparison to the other 2 at all. It was normal for the 3 of them to attract attention when they walked together. Fortunately, the 3 of them didn't particularly care about this. They pretended not to see and strolled on their own. There were many vendors on both sides of the street. They each had a stall in front of them. Some were selling herbs, some were xian formations, and some were even selling divine artifacts. Although most of these things didn't catch the eyes of the 3 of them, there were still many interesting things. The 3 of them walked for about an hour before they reached the end of the long street. Actually, the things sold here can only be considered ordinary in Fangzhou City. If we really want to find something good, we have to go to another street. Zhuoxing raised his chin. Are we going? Chu Luiwei looked at his expectant face and couldn't help but laugh. Why does it seem like you know this place very well? Have you been here before? I haven't been here before. But I've already asked my senior brothers and sisters a lot, so I more or less know a little. If we were like the two of you and came out without knowing anything, wouldn't we miss out on a lot of good things? Zhuoxing said proudly. Let's go. Today, I'll take you to walk around Fangzhou City. Chu Luiwei and Luo Yanming knew that he was going to have fun after leaving the academy. They laughed and agreed to follow him. Then it's a promise. If we don't see anything when we get there later, you have to treat us to a meal. Luo Yanming made a bet. No problem, hee. No problem. Zhuoxing agreed happily and was in high spirits. Chu Luiwei followed behind and couldn't help but shake her head with a smile. Suddenly, her eyes focused. Her feet were nailed to the ground as she stared at an item on the stall next to her. Chu Yu, why aren't you walking? The two of them walked a few steps before they realized that Chu Luiwei wasn't following them, so they walked back. What are you looking at? Chu Luiwei didn't say anything. She walked over and picked up a wooden tablet on the ground. On the wooden tablet, a familiar totem was engraved. Digression. This is a small part of today's story. There will be more at noon and at night, working hard to write. Today is also a diligent February. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1320. Perhaps it was because of the passage of time, but the totem was almost worn out. If one did not look carefully, they would only think that it was just a few simple lines and would not think that it was some kind of totem. Only Chu Luiwei, who was too familiar with this totem, could recognize it at a glance. Chu Luiwei stared at the peddler behind the stall. This was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He was wearing an old gray cotton coat. He had a strong body and a face full of stubble. He seemed to be an ordinary peddler in Fangzhou City. How much is this? Chu Luiwei asked. The man raised his eyes to look at her hand and grinned. Young master, you have good eyesight. This thing is a rare sea buckthorn wood. It's a top-grade medicinal herb. If you carry it with you, it can calm your mind and nourish your qi. It's very good for cultivation. If you really want this price. He held up 3 fingers. Chu Luiwei touched the wooden sign. Although the sea buckthorn wood is good, it's not a top-grade precious treasure. Your asking price, isn't it too much? Where did you get this thing? Hearing this, the peddler laughed. Even if it's not precious, if you like it, isn't it a treasure? As for where this thing came from, I don't remember. You see, I have so many things, how can I remember where I got them from? If you really want it, I'll give you a discount, how about it? Do you really think we're fools? This thing is not even worth half of the price you said. Zhuoxing couldn't help but walk up and sneered. Chu Yu, if you want this sea buckthorn wood, learn. We have a lot of it, why waste this money? Lingxiao College didn't have anything. He really didn't understand why Chu Yu was interested in this thing. Chu Luiwei smiled. It's rare to find a good one. It's not bad to buy it. Saying this, she said to the peddler, half price, I'll take it. Hearing this, the peddler immediately showed a happy expression. Great. Young master is really generous. Zhuoxing wanted to persuade her again, but seeing that Chu Luiwei had made up her mind, she could only let her be. Chu Luiwei took out a money pouch and handed it over. The peddler happily took it. If young master is interested in anything else, please feel free to choose. Chu Luiwei shook his head. No need, I'll take this. With that, she looked at Zhuoxing. Didn't you say you were going to bring us somewhere more lively? Let's go. Yes. Let's go. Over there. As he spoke, Zhuoxing took the lead and walked forward. Chu Luiwei and Luo Yanming followed closely behind. The 3 figures quickly disappeared around the corner. Chu Yu, isn't that just a wooden plate carved from sea buckthorn wood? What's so good about it? If you ask me, you really have too much money to spend. On the way, Zhuoxing was still brooding over the fact that Chu Luiwei had bought the wooden token. As a disciple of Lingxiao College, especially when Chu Yu was a celestial physician, what good things had he not seen before? He came to Fangzhou City and actually bought such an item back. If word got out, he would probably be laughed at. Luo Yinming smiled faintly. Zhuosheng, he bought it if he wanted. He didn't spend your money. Why are you thinking so much? I'm not. Hey, Chuyu, why aren't you leaving? As Zhuosheng was speaking, she saw Chu Luiwei suddenly stop, weigh the wooden token in her hand, and then turn around and walk back. The remaining two were stunned for a moment. They thought that she was angry and hurriedly chased after her. Hey, Chuyu, what's wrong with you? Zhuosheng scratched her head in embarrassment. Is it because I talk too much that you don't want to listen? Chu Luiwei shook her head. No. I just found that the wooden token seems to be fake. You guys go ahead first. I'll ask that person for a refund. I'll meet you guys later. The two were a little surprised, but seeing that Chu Luiwei didn't seem to be faking it, they believed her. How dare he sell fake goods? We have to teach him a lesson. We brothers will go with you. As Zhuosheng spoke, he rolled up his sleeves as if he was going to fight. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but look at him with a smile. It's better that the two of you don't follow. Otherwise, what if things get out of hand? Don't forget, this is Fangzhou City. If anything happens, the academy will immediately know. Zhuosheng put down his sleeves embarrassedly. Then can you do it alone? What if the other party doesn't admit it? Chu Luiwei chuckled. If I really can't, there are still elders of the academy in Fangzhou City. If anything happened to the students, they would definitely step in immediately. So you don't have to worry. I'll be back soon. Zhuosheng and Zhuosheng looked at each other and could only agree. All right. Chu Luiwei went back the way she came and quickly returned to the street. She didn't go forward. Instead, she stood at the corner and glanced at the street. The peddler was nowhere to be seen. There was indeed a problem. Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes. She had left a special mark on the money bag. As long as it was within a radius of 30 miles, she would be able to detect the other party's tracks. She turned the universe ring in her hand and looked around. Finally, she ran in one direction. Fangzhou City's big and small streets were very lively. Chu Luiwei walked through them as usual, looking no different from the others. But in fact, she kept a certain distance from the other party. After walking 3 streets, Chu Luiwei finally realized that something was wrong. The other party seemed to be planning to leave the city. She stopped in her tracks. Either the other party was planning to leave, or he was deliberately luring her out of the city. There were many elders and students of Lingxiao College in Fangzhou City. It was obviously very inconvenient. It was only convenient to do things outside the city. Chu Luiwei held the wooden token in her hand tightly. She could clearly feel the totem engraved on it. She only hesitated for a moment before she followed again. Soon, she arrived at the city gate. There was no one guarding here, so there were many people going in and out. Chu Luiwei glanced around. She did not see the peddler's figure. He had already gone out. Chu Luiwei put away the wooden token and walked out of the city gate. When passing through the barrier at the city gate, Chu Luiwei deliberately suppressed the power in her body. Her dantian was calm. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief and look forward. Outside Fangzhou City was a boundless wasteland. The sky was gloomy, as if it was going to rain. The place where the heaven and earth met was chaotic. Nothing could be seen clearly. On the wasteland, there were people coming and going. But compared to the people in the city, there were much fewer people. Chu Luiwei looked over and finally saw a somewhat familiar figure. It was the peddler just now. She took a breath and quickly chased after him. The further away from Fangzhou City, the fewer people there were. Gradually, there was no one else around. You deliberately lured me out. Now can we have a good chat? Chu Luiwei spoke clearly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1321. The man stood still and turned around. You're as smart as ever. At this moment, his face no longer had that eager and ingratiating smile from before. Instead, it was replaced by a faint smile that sent chills down one's spine. His voice had also become much more hoarse and deep, so gloomy that it made one uneasy. Chu Liwei suddenly felt that this voice was somewhat familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere before. She frowned slightly and stared at the other party. Looks like we've met before. Now that she was wearing a mask, the other party might be the same. Since you dared to follow me out so directly, it looks like you're very confident in your own strength. The man laughed, but there was no smile in his eyes. His eyes were cold, and he looked at Chu Liwei as if he was looking at meat on a chopping board. It was as if victory was already in his grasp. Chu Liwei became alert, and then a thought suddenly flashed in her mind. That person from the Black Demon Cave? She had only heard such a gloomy and cold voice from one person, the soul that had been lodged in Shangguan Wan's body. On the day of Shangguan Wan's wedding, Chu Liwei had wanted to kill him, but he had escaped in the end. Most importantly, he seemed to have been coveting the water droplet in her body. Shoo! The man suddenly raised his finger and smiled sinisterly. That's not right. Although the Black Demon Cave's totem is carved on that wooden tablet, to be precise, I'm no longer from there. So, you don't have to associate me with them. You should know very well why I'm here today. As he spoke, the man raised his hand, palm facing up, as if he was coaxing, but also as if he was ordering. Give me that thing. After a brief moment of dead silence, Chu Liwei sneered mercilessly. She did not seem to care about the threat in the other party's words at all. She raised her eyebrows slightly and stared at him with a half-smile, as if she was watching a joke. You think I have to give it to you just because you want it? No one in the world has that much face before me. You think too highly of yourself. Hearing Chu Liwei's sarcasm, the man was not angry. What a pity. I originally thought that everyone would be happy. You gave me that thing and I would spare your life. How nice would that be? Unfortunately, it seems that you don't value your life that much. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of dark green flame suddenly appeared in his palm. At the same time, his aura began to rise crazily. You're really haunting me, Chu Liwei said coldly. Previously, when she was in the Tianling dynasty, she was unable to intercept and kill him, which had always been a regret. She didn't expect him to deliver himself to her doorstep today. This saved her a lot of effort. The origin power in his body started to circulate rapidly and rush toward his hand. A brilliant light appeared in Chu Liwei's palm. Right at this moment, the man's hand suddenly clenched downward. In an instant, the water droplets in Chu Liwei's body began to spin crazily. Moreover, he had a faint impulse to break free. Chu Liwei forcefully suppressed it, drawing out the divine power and pouring it into his palm. Soon, the dark clouds in the sky gathered toward them, and strong winds blew everywhere. The energy of heaven and earth rushed toward Chu Liwei continuously. The wind lifted her long hair, and her clothes fluttered. However, the man still seemed to be disdainful of Chu Liwei. He chuckled, his face full of mockery. You overestimate yourself. He closed his eyes. The surrounding space began to freeze inch by inch. A true god-level powerhouse. Soon, with the two of them as the center, a large area of space around them had been controlled by this man. The flow of energy in Chu Liwei's body began to slow down, and her movements also became sluggish. However, she still made a move with difficulty. God-stuffing fist. Chu Liwei punched out. A fist shadow that emitted a brilliant light instantly crushed toward the opponent. Wherever it passed, the void shattered. Soon, large patches of black space cracks appeared. Now that Chu Liwei had broken through to the 8th stage, and this punch contained a trace of divine power, its power could not be underestimated. Last time, she was still unable to fight back under the opponent's attack, but now, only half a year had passed, and Chu Liwei was already able to fight against it. What? This scene obviously shocked the man as well. He had already used his god realm, and logically speaking, Chu Liwei should not be able to fight back at all. The power that could shatter a god realm was naturally divine power. He had expected Chu Liwei to enter Ling Shao Academy, and her strength must have improved, but he did not expect it to be to such an astonishing extent. The god-stuffing fist was almost unstoppable. It went straight for the man's face. At this moment, the man finally realized that he had underestimated Chu Luyue. The next moment, his expression turned cold, and he went straight for Chu Luyue. However, the god-stuffing fist sensed his movement and immediately changed direction. Damn it! The man cursed violently and increased his speed again. However, the power of the god-stuffing fist did not decrease in the slightest, and he could not shake it off at all. He never thought that it would be so strenuous to deal with a rank 8 martial artist. This was clearly his own god realm, but he was the one being chased and beaten. In the end, he finally chose to face the attack head-on. A ball of dark green flame quickly condensed and then collided with the fist's shadow. Boom! In an instant, a violent force exploded from the middle, and then crazily rushed out in all directions. The man's god realm was impacted and began to crack. The pressure around Chu Luyue decreased. Without hesitation, she immediately summoned the Scarlet Heaven Sword. The sword slashed down. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1322. A beam of sword light pierced through the sky. The piercing sword energy instantly cut through all obstacles and headed straight for the top of the man's head. Scarlet Heaven Sword was a rare venerable artifact. It had a great advantage, which was that it could quickly condense power and deal a fatal blow to the opponent. When Chu Luyue used the stupefying God Fist, she still needed some time to prepare and brew. However, when she swung Scarlet Heaven Sword, she did not need to do so at all. The sword followed the heart and was invincible. In an instant, Scarlet Heaven Sword could condense a shocking amount of power and slash down easily. It was the same at this moment. Venerable artifact? The man was pushed back a few steps by the frenzied power. Before he could stabilize himself, he felt an even more piercing aura coming at him. He looked up and a look of horror flashed in his eyes. Chu Luyue's eyes were filled with a strong killing intent. Apart from some of the Academy's elders, almost no one knew that she had a venerable artifact. For various reasons, the Academy's elders basically did not disclose this matter to outsiders. However, others might not know. Chu Luyue knew all too well what kind of commotion would occur if news of her having a venerable artifact spread. Therefore, this man must die today. Thinking of this, she tapped her toes and flew forward, slashing down a second time. In Fang State City. After Chu Luyue left, Zhuo Sheng and Luo Ming went to a nearby tea house, wanting to wait for her to come back and shop together. However, after waiting for a long time and changing their tea, Chu Luyue still had not returned. It shouldn't take that long to return something, right? Zhuo Sheng looked down from the window on the second floor. The streets were bustling with people coming and going, but that familiar figure was nowhere to be seen. Could it be that that person refused to return it and the two of them started arguing? Luo Yanming thought for a moment and shook her head. Probably not. That wooden token is not a big deal, so there's no need to fight over it. It's that man's fault for selling fake goods. If they make a fuss, he won't be able to do business. Zhuo Sheng thought about it and agreed. Fangzhou City's location was special. Normally, almost no one would dare to cause trouble here. Presumably, they would be back soon. However, after waiting for a while, the two of them still didn't see anyone. No, let's go and take a look. With that, the two of them hurriedly returned to the street from before. The peddler was nowhere to be seen. Even his stall had been packed up. Chu Luyue had also disappeared. The two of them looked back and forth before they realized that something had really happened. What's going on? Where did the two of them go? Zhuo Sheng looked anxious. The other vendors are still here. There must be something fishy about that man. Could it be that he took Chu Yu away? Luo Yanming pondered for a moment. It doesn't look like it. At that time, Chu Yu said that the item was fake and wanted to return it. But he was a celestial physician, how could he be wrong? He didn't think much of it before, but now that he thought about it, there were many suspicious points. Chu Yu seemed to have deliberately returned. Then why didn't Chu Yu tell us? Zhuo Sheng was a little annoyed. Could it be that he was afraid that we would know something? If he really encountered any danger, they could be of help with him. Now, they didn't even know where he was. Fangzhou City is too big, and that man seems to have come prepared. I'm afraid that just the two of us won't be enough. As Luo Yanming spoke, she turned and walked in a certain direction. Hey, Yanming, where are you going? Zhuosheng hurriedly followed. Luo Yanming said firmly, I'm going to find the elders on duty in the city. Everything that happens in Fangzhou City is under their control. With their help, we should be able to find Chu Yu as soon as possible. On the other side, the people from the academy who were heading to the northern border of the primordial wilderness were finally about to arrive after a long and arduous journey. Elder Bo Yen looked ahead and said in a deep voice, the northern border of the primordial wilderness is right ahead. The environment here is terrible and extremely dangerous. Everyone must be prepared to defend themselves. Behind him, many students responded in unison, yes. Most of the elders had solemn expressions. Affected by this, the overall atmosphere was more oppressive. But even so, many of the students could not hide the excitement and curiosity in their eyes. It could be said that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers, or that they were young and full of vigor. In any case, they were obviously very eager to become stronger. They all hoped that through this experience, they could increase their strength, or even meet with some kind of opportunity to soar to the sky. The surroundings quickly quieted down again. But under this seemingly calm surface, there seemed to be an undercurrent surging. Everyone set up a barrier around themselves. Some even held their yuan instruments in their hands, as if they were ready to fight at any time. Elder Bo Yen and the other elders looked at each other and nodded. Open! At his command, all the elders attacked at the same time. In the darkness ahead, an extremely complicated Xian formation suddenly appeared. Everyone's heart shook. That was the exit of the transportation formation. As long as they exited from there, they would be at the legendary primordial wilderness. Very quickly, under the joint efforts of all the elders, a crack appeared in the middle of the Xian formation. A blinding white light shone out from within. Elder Bo Yen squinted his eyes and increased his strength. The Xian formation was completely split into two parts, and they slowly retreated to the side. The door of the transportation formation finally opened slowly. Go! Elder Bo Yen moved and took the lead to rush out. The other 10 or so elders followed closely behind. Everyone started to file out. Elder Bo Yen was the first to come out. His feet stepped on the hard ground, finally giving him a sense of security. Elder Bo Yen raised his eyes and looked forward. It was a vast snowfield. The sky was gray and gloomy. Snow fell like goose feathers. Other than that, there was nothing else. Elder Bo Yen was slightly stunned. This is the primordial wilderness north? Behind him, Elder Wenxi followed and was also stunned when he saw this scene. It was their first time here. Although they had heard many rumors, but when they saw it for themselves, they still felt extremely shocked. Behind them, more and more people came out from the transportation formation. Will that thing really appear here? Elder Wenxi could not help but mutter softly. Suddenly, his gaze congealed and pointed to the front. What is that? Digression, I haven't had a good rest in this period of time. I couldn't sleep yesterday, so I wrote less this morning. I will continue to update at around 7 p.m. and 12 p.m. I will try my best to write more. Those who don't like to read separately can read together at night. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1323. The cold wind was biting cold, sweeping up the remaining snow. It was a vast expanse of white between heaven and earth. In the distance, on the flat, snowy ground, something suddenly drilled out from below. It was a magical beast that was about the size of an adult's fist. It looked like a fox, but its ears and nose were different. Its mouth was protruding, revealing two sharp fangs that made it look even more ferocious. Because its entire body was snow white, only its face was grayish-brown, it was easy to hide in the snow. That's a 9th grade magical beast, the gray-faced deer. Although it's small, It's agile and cunning. It often eats the bones of other living beings to survive, so it's hated by many. Who would have thought that the first magical beast they encountered after coming to the northern border of the primeval wilderness would be this one? Elder Bo Yen explained. But Elder Wen she still did not relax. Of course, he knew what kind of magical beast it was, and because of that, he was especially surprised. This is a world of ice and snow, and there's no one around. How did it survive here? Elder Bo Yen was stunned, and then he frowned. What he said was not without reason. This gray-faced deer was not a magical beast that liked bitter cold places, so there was no reason for it to stay here. And this one seemed to be in good spirits. As if it sensed their gazes, the gray-faced deer glanced in their direction and then quickly plunged back into the snow. Snowflakes flew everywhere, and it quickly disappeared. From the outside, other than a hole in the snow, it looked no different from other places. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Wen she looked at each other and saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. This gray-faced deer was so active and smart, and did not look like it was suffering at all. Obviously, it was living a good life here. Then, didn't that mean that there was a lot of food here for it to enjoy? The ground was covered in thick snow, and when one stepped on it, it was almost as high as one's thigh. No one knew what was hidden under the layer of snow. Elder Bo Yen felt a little uneasy. Bo Yen, our people are all out, where are we going next? Another elder walked over and asked. Elder Bo Yen turned back to take a look. The remaining students and elders had indeed come out. He thought for a moment, then said, Now, we have arrived at the northern region of untainted land. However, this place is extremely vast. No one knows where the heavenly square cauldron will appear. Therefore, in the following period of time, we will act separately. 2 elders formed a team and were responsible for looking after the 60 students. But there was one thing. Everyone had to stay in touch at all times. If there are any problems, retreat immediately. Your life comes first. Understood? Yes. Elder Bo Yen waved his hand. Go. At that moment, countless experts were arriving at the Red Valley Beach outside the northern region of the primordial world. The people who had come were all from the first-rate families and sects of the Divine Ruins world. They were all ambitious and wanted to fight for the heavenly square cauldron that was about to appear here. The northern region of the primeval wasteland, which had been silent for thousands of years, was quietly bustling with activity. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. Outside Fangzhou City, the fierce battle finally came to an end. A well-built man was lying on the ground. The clothes on his chest were already stained red with blood. The snow-white sword pierced through his chest and nailed him to the ground. He panted heavily and struggled to get up, but it was futile. His face quickly turned pale, and his aura was dispirited. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. His eyes were filled with anger and resentment as he glared at a figure not far in front of him. The ground beneath him was quickly covered in blood. It looked very miserable. Chu Luiwei looked at him coldly and slowly walked over. She stepped on the man's chest with one foot, pressing down on his chest for a while. More blood gushed out. At the same time, she held the sword hilt with one hand and slowly turned it. Scarlet Heaven Sword, which was as light as a feather in her hand, was as heavy as 10,000 kilograms in the eyes of others. With just a light spin, the man's flesh, blood, and bones were almost completely crushed. Ah! The man's expression changed, and he let out a hysterical scream. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly, as if she was very satisfied with his reaction. Back then, Shangguan Wan joined forces with Jiang Yuqing to harm her. Behind the scenes, there was no lack of instigation from this person. Therefore, this could be considered as revenge for back then. Chu Luiwei tilted her head to admire his painful struggle before she slowly asked, "What's wrong with you?" "There's something I don't understand. I have no enmity with you. Even until now, I don't know who you are. But why did you plan to kill me a long time ago? Could it be because of that thing in my body?" As Chu Luiwei spoke, she narrowed her eyes dangerously. That water droplet only appeared in her body after she was reborn. At that time, she thought that it was something that the original owner of this body had. But if this person had been planning to kill her for the water droplet since a long time ago, then didn't that prove that the water droplet had already been with her in her previous life before she was harmed? But she didn't have this part of her memory. Moreover, if this water droplet really existed at that time, why didn't it do anything until she died? Hearing Chu Liyue's question, the man's painful groans became much softer. He suddenly laughed sarcastically and spat out a mouthful of blood, but he refused to answer. Chu Liyue pulled out Scarlet Cloud Sword, and a line of blood appeared. Ugh! The man frowned in pain. An ice-cold sensation came from his neck. The cold blade of the sword was already pressed tightly against his neck. He didn't doubt that Chu Liyue would kill him at any time. Since you value this thing so much, why don't we talk? How much do you know about this thing? The man simply closed his eyes. Obviously, he had no intention of continuing the conversation with Chu Liyue. Then, a strange totem appeared between his eyebrows. Chu Liyue was shocked and quickly retreated. Bang! That body suddenly exploded. Something took the opportunity to run away quickly. It wanted to play the same trick as last time. Chu Liyue's expression turned cold. She raised her hand and waved a transparent flame. That flame quickly set up a barrier around them. The barrier shattered. But at the same time, that aura also weakened a lot. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth. Last time she let it escape. This time, it was absolutely impossible. With a thought, a transparent cauldron appeared in her palm. She gently pushed with her palm, and the heavenly square cauldron flew out quickly. The soul that was escaping quickly seemed to be affected by a huge suction force, and its speed slowed down at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, just as Chu Liyue thought that the heavenly square cauldron was about to subdue and suppress it, she saw that the soul suddenly burned. Her heart sank. The next moment, that soul completely dissipated. It disappeared without a trace. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1324. Clang. Chu Liyue stabbed Scarlet Heaven Sword into the ground. He escaped again. Don't worry. With this soul destroyed, even if he doesn't die, his vitality will be greatly damaged. Taizu advised. You killed him today, so you can consider it as venting your anger. Chu Liyue calmed herself down and summoned the heavenly square cauldron back. She paused for a moment and said, Thank you, Taizu. I understand. In fact, it was already very difficult for her to win today. Her opponent's strength was much higher than hers. Unfortunately, he did not have a physical body and could only reside in someone else's body. This greatly affected his strength. Moreover, what was stored in that physical body was not all of his soul. It seems that this person's actions are very cautious. He's been testing me time and time again. He's really patient. Chu Liyue sneered. But it's not bad if he keeps doing this. If he comes a few more times, I can finish him off bit by bit. Taizu knew that she was angry. No one would be able to tolerate such a thing. Girl, don't worry about that for now. You used up a lot of energy in the battle just now. You should recover first. It won't be too late to think of a way to solve this matter when you go back. Chu Liyue nodded. She had left Fang Province City for some time. Zhuosheng and the others might already be looking for her. Although she had the upper hand just now, she had used up a lot of energy. If they saw her now, it would be even more difficult to explain. Chu Liyue put away Scarlet Heaven Sword, swallowed 2 pills, and sat down to meditate. About 15 minutes later, her strength recovered slightly, and her face was not so pale. She stood up, thought for a moment, and walked to the corpse. She took out a jade screen and poured something out. A transparent liquid flowed out and dripped onto the man's body. His body quickly turned into a pool of blood and quickly seeped into the ground, disappearing without a trace. Nothing could be seen except for the messy bloodstains on the ground. And because the ground was dark brown, if one didn't look carefully, it would be difficult to notice the bloodstains. In the wilderness of the Divine Ruins world, all kinds of battles would occur at any time. A little bloodstain wouldn't attract anyone's attention. However, after some thought, Chu Luiyue waved her hand and used flames to burn away the remaining bloodstains. She took out the wooden tablet. Just as she was about to crush it, she suddenly paused and put it away. Taizu, do you know where the black demon sect is? Taizu paused for a moment and gave an affirmative answer. I know the approximate location. But that was 1,000 years ago. Now that so much time has passed, I wonder if they are still in that place. That's easy. Just ask around. Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it. Now that she was also in the Divine Ruins world, it wouldn't be that difficult to find the Black Demon sect. Taizu hesitated. It's fine if you want to go to the Black Demon sect. But with your current strength, I'm afraid, Taizu, don't worry. Before I have absolute confidence, I won't act rashly. Besides, didn't that person say that he's no longer a member of the Black Demon sect? Maybe I can find some clues from other sources in the future. Seeing that Chu Luiyue's thoughts were clear and her emotions were calm, Taizu was relieved. It's good that you know what you're doing. Only then did Chu Luiyue turn around and leave. After a period of time, Chu Luiyue returned to the city alone. As if nothing had happened, she walked towards the place where she had agreed to meet Zhuosheng and the others. Just as she turned the corner and walked onto a street, she suddenly heard a familiar voice in front of her. Chu Yu? She looked over and saw that it was Luo Yanming. Chu Yu, where did you go just now? Luo Yanming quickly rushed over and nervously sized up Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue laughed bitterly and helplessly. It's a long story. Seeing that Chu Luiyue seemed to be very tired, Luo Yanming originally had a lot of questions to ask, but she suppressed them all. Come back with me first. I'll pass the news to the elders and Zhuosheng. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Elders? That's right. After discovering that you were missing, Zhuosheng and I searched for you in the city for a long time, but we couldn't find you. In a hurry, we went to ask the elders for help. Now they're looking for you everywhere. Chu Luiyue looked apologetic. I'm really sorry to have caused you so much trouble. No one else knows about this, right? At present, other than Zhuosheng and me, only the 2 elders on duty know. Originally, we said that if you didn't return before dark, we would send more people to look for you. There were many students from Lingxiao College in Fang State City. As long as the elders gave the order, they would immediately take action. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. If so many people were troubled because of me, I'm even more sorry. Where are the elders now? I'll personally apologize to them. Luo Yanming didn't suspect anything. She brought Chu Luiyue to meet up with Zhuosheng and the others. Luo Yanming originally had a lot of questions, but there were people coming and going on the road, so she didn't say much. She only glanced at Chu Luiyue from time to time. Her eyes were filled with surprise, curiosity, inquiry, and confusion. Chu Luiyue could only pretend not to see it. Fortunately, not long after, they met Zhuosheng and the elders who were anxiously looking for her. When they saw Chu Luiyue return, they were first surprised and glad, but then they were full of doubts. They simply returned to the courtyard where the elders on duty lived. After entering the room, Zhuosheng couldn't help but take the lead and ask, Chu Yu, what's going on? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.